thank God,
You're
for
allowed.
voluntary starts.
You're allowed.
All right, let's open the meeting. Meeting of Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 of the Planning Board. Roll call.
Thomas Callahan.
Present.
Rupert Friday.
Here.
Jerry Brunetto.
Present.
Dr. O'Neill.
Here.
Mark Brady.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 members present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. We are a go. All right. First thing, I need approval of the minutes. These are from Wednesday, January 17th. I believe everybody was here.
Correct.
That's my notes say.
Mr. Chairman, I have a tweak on it.
Yes.
Items for the next agenda, we talked about having legislation as a standing agenda item.
That's under F,
Oh, okay, sorry.
legislative update.
One other thing.
Yep.
We're using a new terminology here. We old guys, we need education, so you're talking here 302, 401, 40. We've never used that terminology before.
I'm
In
sorry,
terms
where are
of
we
the,
talking?
Oh, passed. Three
Passes
three in favor.
401.
So 4, I'm presuming,
Zero.
Is I. 0 is, but what's 1?
abstained.
Abstained, and it's listed as Tom Callahan abstained.
Okay. Yeah, it's just different from.
Nope, good question.
Yeah.
Everybody on board with that?
So moved.
You to approve the minutes?
Anybody have anything to approve for the minutes? I need a motion.
Move to accept the minutes Wednesday, January 17th.
Okay. Dr.
Second.
O'Neill, second.
Who seconded? Thank you.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. The ayes have it. We are going to change the order of things. So we are going to skip down to partial road abandonment, Conch Road, Plat 2, R2, Lot 216. All right.
What's that for?
That is agenda item 4, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking me first. Appreciate that.
You're a first guy.
I know.
Well, I saw you in the back. I figured you'd been here since yesterday,
So,
There you go, Jack.
get the plan up there. So my client's here, Lisa Paulrock. She's the owner of 22 Conch Road on Great Island. She owns lot 16.
Can you point that?
There it is.
I couldn't.
So here's her property right here.
Couldn't
It
get back in
actually
there today.
goes all the way around right here, right back up here. So she's requested a portion of the road abandonment. You can go to the next slide. There should be another one. So this is what she's looking to abandon right here. Right, it's about 939 square feet. And the reason why she wants to do that is because she is going to raise her property up about 6 feet. If you go to the next picture, you have that up.
Nope.
Next one.
That's all I had, sorry. What was the next picture?
I sent you 5 slides.
Oh, the
Yeah, the
photographs?
photos. Yeah. Yeah, those.
They are in their packets?
We have.
Oh, you have? So I can just show you this one. That's what her front yard looks like. Okay?
Okay.
So she'd like to raise that property up about 6 feet, but by doing that, she's gonna have to put a front step on. And when she does that, it'll end up extending into the right of way. And so that's the purpose of the abandonment. I looked through the staff report. There's no indication. None of these other houses in the neighborhood use this road. It's a paper road. It's never been improved. There's no utilities in the road. And the staff stated that, as far as the town was concerned, they had no further utility use for that portion of the road.
Wasn't there something about water? Was there-
The water service runs in the road, but it only runs partially up the road and
Okay.
stops short of that particular area.
It's down this way, right?
Yeah,
Michael, do you have any history on that right away? Just curious.
it's very weird. It's part of the Great Island subdivision. It's a, if I back up and show you the aerial, the aerial is kind of close up.
Right.
If I had a broader range aerial, you'd see why that roadway was there.
Oh,
It was put in place to create access for some waterfront properties to be constructed. But it's original to the Great Island subdivision. Odd shape, but it's there.
It had been 3 lots, and that's,
Yeah. So,
they didn't make it 3 lots?
attorney, you want your client to speak?
Yeah, come on up.
Can you please come up and just, you don't need to be sworn in, but could you let everybody know
Identify.
yeah, the property
who you are?
has
No,
been,
please identify yourself.
Lisa Horrocks, owner of the property, co-owner.
Just push that button up there. Nope. Right there.
Okay, so it had been 3 lots. It'd been 1 and then it split down here. And then when my parents owned all 3 lots, and we subdivided the property back in 1992, and we lost this frontage to my parents. So my parents, who own this lot over here, get that hockey stick area as their frontage. So this became our frontage here, and this became our frontage. And now, I mean, the only reason we want to abandon it is because we need to have stairs to access the front of the house when we raise it, because we have a big problem with water.
Do we create an additional hardship if that's all there is for their frontage? And you take that frontage and cut it in less than half?
Well, that's kind of why we did it this way, and Lisa and I devised this
Oh.
layout, because when you
We were wondering.
Yeah,
Well-
so there's our frontage right there.
well,
You mean
yeah,
somebody thought this out?
well, yeah, we did.
I went to planning and I talked to people, and this is what.
So we have it, it goes here, here, here.
And down.
Down, right to there.
So you create more frontage.
Yeah.
We have an easement for this driveway that you can see marked,
Yeah.
and we have an easement. So both properties utilize that driveway. We both have an easement.
I think our lot actually becomes more conforming by giving it this amount of frontage.
If they had, what Lisa had originally asked me for was, could the town just abandon everything from this corner straight across to this side?
Yeah.
And I said, well, that makes sense, except for now your frontage is this. This, 40 feet or
It's
20,
about
28
20
feet, and then another 16 or 18 feet. It doesn't meet the R10 standard. Now you won't have, now you'll be out of compliance. So we came up with this interesting layout that will do the job for them. And since they own the property on both sides, I thought, really, it doesn't matter what the shape of it is. We don't want them to be out of compliance, and it does make sense to give them some more space so they can lift the house and protect it.
Do you guys, are you finished with your presentation, or?
Yes, yes. I mean, I did question, legally whether or not we even need to abandon this thing, because I questioned whether or not there was even a dedication, but it's just cheaper to come here and ask for the abandonment than it is to go through that whole legal rigmarole, quite frankly.
Dr. O'Neill, you have questions?
Yeah, so if the town officially owns that piece, there's a value. It's not much, but there's a value. We've had this conversation in this room for years. So I noticed in the notes here that there's gonna be a conversation with the owner, and I noticed that the way it was phrased, that the owner was gonna get an appraisal of terms of value. The last time I sold anything, I got an appraisal and the other person got an appraisal. Why wouldn't, probably is very little value because it's sort of swampy, and but there is a value there, and the town owns something and they're going to transfer it over ownership. Whether it's $100 or $1,000, I think that should be addressed.
So,
You
wanna go, Jack?
Yeah, so the town recently, was it as of January? I
Yes.
think? Yeah, so they amended the State Enabling Act to give the town the right to charge, charge for the abandonments. A lot of towns still don't, they just abandon, but there are a few towns, now including the town of Narragansett, that can charge. They don't have to charge, we could just go forward, and that's gonna be my request, because if we have to wait and do the appraisal route, we're gonna have to wait until November, right, to get on the,
Yeah, so a couple of things.
Yeah.
One is, we still don't have our local ordinance enacted,
right,
which we need to do that. That would allow the town that's the procedure to do it. And then normally it would be, well, the applicant can certainly get an appraisal. Normally it'll be the town, there's a procedure where the town gets an appraiser, or the tax assessor will assign a value to it. Then it's up to the town council to decide if, if they want to, well, it may not be discretionary depending on the ordinance. So if the assessment is $12,000, then the town council doesn't have to abandon it, but if they do, it'll be $12,000. But then, no matter what, because it's a property right, it still needs to go on the list to get voted on in November. So no matter what, whether
gotta be
it's
on the
$0,
so the town hasn't adopted an ordinance to effectuate
the enabling.
right, so I could, before the town council, request that the abandoned under the existing ordinance without the requirement of payment, and that's what I'm gonna ask, because
Yeah.
there is water there, and it's somewhat of a situation,
Yeah.
and we don't wanna wait another year before we jack this house up.
But either way, it's gotta go on the ballot.
Yeah.
We can't abandon a pencil without a rule.
I disagree. I think you can still abandon. You can't, we couldn't charge. You could always abandon.
No, because we gotta do it.
It's not a sale.
How are we gonna do
I
a
think
deed?
it says a transfer of property.
We're
period.
alienating property.
Yeah.
I mean, we got an easement that's gonna go on, Jack.
Did Saint Veronica, that abandonment, did that go before me?
That was that before?
Sorry,
Yeah,
that was before?
yeah.
Steve, if I can ask
They've
this
denied,
question.
I think we've denied, you've been
We have.
the applicant on every one of
I
them.
know. We have the same argument.
Yeah, you keep coming in.
You gotta change your act.
But this time, I really,
I
Okay,
have a question,
yeah.
Mr.
Hold on.
Chairman.
go ahead.
Knowing that the abandonment is not the end of it, but that the subdivision of land to incorporate the crosshatched area into the Horrocks and Van Hemmer property still has to be done and recorded, and a deed recorded. Is it possible that the council could follow through and they could do the abandonment process and leave the payment part to take place during the administrative subdivision step?
So I'm not gonna advise what the council can or can't do, I'll leave that up to Mark.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, what happens if it gets denied? That's the problem. I know everything usually gets approved on that list, but it could get denied.
Dr. O'Neill, anything else?
No.
All right, no questions? Hubert?
The questions I had were why the right-of-way is in the middle of the lot to begin with, and why the crosshatch pattern instead of straight across. So I'm pretty well answered that. So.
I'm good.
You good? I have one question. My question is this: by granting this, well, I think, I'm guessing because of the hockey stick mode, this can't be subdivided into 2 lots. Do we create 2 lots when we do this? That's my big concern.
No, there's one. You'd have to do a
Insufficient land
division
area.
line. There's no division line here. It's,
Well, I know there's 1 lot now, but I also know that people change their mind going down the road and suddenly somebody else owns the property and they want to make 2 lots out of it.
right.
And they've got a lot of frontage there. Do we create
Is this an R10?
2
It's
separate
R10.
lots here?
Yeah.
It's R10, so how many square feet is,
The
It's 15
abandonment
or 25
would be,
plus 1,000.
the abandonment would be 939 square feet added to the 15,125. It still wouldn't add up to enough land area to subdivide in accordance with the R10 zones.
Well, and our septic system is the whole front part.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, because that would actually change the value of
right.
the abandonment also.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I don't know if it would. I don't think you look at potential use when you're appraising property. You need to take the as-is value of that property, not potential. That's would be my argument when you're talking about value.
Possibly, but that's not a conversation for here.
Right,
Right.
right.
We appreciate the freebie.
Okay.
Do I have any questions or comments from the public? No? Anything to add from staff?
No, sir, I've suggested that there be 4 conditions. I've suggested that it's approvable, and that there be 4 conditions. I think we've already discussed them. The applicant conduct a land appraisal for the property in question, that the administrative subdivision be submitted to the planning board administrative officer and placed on record prior to transfer of the land, that the appropriate deed be drafted describing the new boundary of the Van Hemrick/Horrocks property, and the payment for the land be transferred be made prior to or concurrently with the recording of items 2 and 3.
We are just sending a recommendation to the council. They're the ones that's going to have to approve this.
Yep.
All right. Any redirect or any questions, Dr. O'Neill?
No, other than where you mentioned the applicant or the town conduct a land appraisal. If that's a recommend, I would say the applicant and the town.
Or we'll have to make that part of it.
I know in my experience, other towns, it's usually the tax assessor that sets the value.
Yeah.
And then if the applicant has a problem with it, they give them the opportunity to go out and get an independent appraisal.
Appraisal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's a disagreement, yeah.
Sherry, any other redirect or any other questions? Rupert?
What, yeah, let me,
Oh, you
can
do?
we,
Sorry. Go ahead.
the appraised amount, we have to use an appraised amount? Can't we use like something that relates to fees to cover our costs and that's it?
The state in
Instead
England
of
Act says
chasing-
appraisal.
It has to be appraised value.
It says appraisal in the ordinance, not the ordinance in the
All right, thank you,
statute.
Council.
Yep.
Tom?
Good.
Okay. All right. So again, this is right-of-way abandonment, Conch Road, partial. Do I have a motion?
So we don't need a motion for completeness.
No, it's just it's thumbs up or down, and if you wanted to change conditions, of course.
Yeah, I'll move the application before us positively with that slight modification. Both parties getting an appraisal. Subject road right away, abandonment, Conch Road, as we've been discussing with the staff's comments, and 4 recommendations in the correspondence, February 16, 2024.
Okay. Do we need to read those 4 into the record? Okay, they're on page 2. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
All those opposed? Passes unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
good luck.
Thank you. Good luck. Okay. So again, as we change things, we move up the minor subdivision 2 lots. Lot N-I, lot 12775, Boston Neck Road. That would be number 5 on our tab.
Good
You,
evening,
sir?
Excuse me, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Attorney Stephen Surdit for the applicant here tonight. We're speaking about 775 Boston Neck Road. As you can see up here, it is located in the northern end of town. It is a property that is unique in that it's accessed from 2 different roadways. The main road, and then as well Downing Road, the cul-de-sac that you see in the middle of the lower portion of your picture. I have one witness here with me tonight, our project engineer, who's generated most of the materials that are in front of you. And with that said, I will turn it over to him, and then I'll come back in front of you. I'm happy to operate this for you if you need up, based upon your temporary handicap there.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Brian P. Fallman, Senior Project Manager and a registered professional engineer with the Creed of Engineering. We have offices located at 2 Stafford Court in Cranston. Here on behalf of the applicants, 775 Boston Neck Road LLC. The proposal before you tonight is to take what is currently designated as Plat N-1, Lot 12,
and subdivide that into 2 parcels. As Mr. Surdate indicated, Lot A, which is where the existing dwelling is now, would keep its frontage on Boston Neck Road, and then Lot B, or Parcel 2, would gain its frontage along Browning Drive. We have gone through all of the entitlement or permitting process required up to this stage, which includes the preliminary determination from the Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council. We've done test pits with Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management on-site wastewater treatment system. We have received a will serve letter from Veolia Water related to a water service that would be extended from Browning Drive. There were some comments provided by the fire marshal related to the need for a hydrant. We've had discussions with the fire marshal, and I don't know if there's an expanded view of the...
Yep, hang on. How about that one?
There we go. We are proposing, currently, this lot and this lot would not meet the the distance to a nearby hydrant as stipulated by NFPA -1, which is the National Fire Protection Association. So what we are proposing is to tap off of the existing water main that is in Browning Drive, put a hydrant here. What that does is it splits the difference between the one that exists at the corner of Boston Neck Road and Browning Drive, so we have roughly 300 feet to the hydrant here, and then the farthest distance would be this structure here, which is about 290 feet. So now we've afforded these 2 dwellings adequate fire protection in accordance with NFPA 1. Other than that, we reviewed the staff report, including the memorandums that were provided. We take no exception to any of the comments, and answer any questions members of the board may have.
Brian, if I could just address one thing. One of the comments speaks about slope, and that the slope on the site. Do you foresee that being an issue in any way?
No, and at this stage, we essentially provide a building footprint that is similar in nature to those structures that are in and around the area. We recognize that there is some slope considerations on this lot, but we will work those out as an actual building permit application with an exact footprint is determined. I don't see that there are insurmountable or constraints that would preclude this from being developed.
Stop.
I think they've covered it all. Very interesting site in the sense of it. When you look at the larger picture of it, it's a very long parcel of land, and it's bisected, or it's met at the midpoint by this cul-de-sac. Interestingly, it doesn't have 100 feet of frontage. That is in this zone, I think it's 150 feet of frontage that's necessary. But when you read our ordinance verbatim, when you read the actual wording of our ordinance, we don't regulate frontage, we regulate lot width. So there is access and sufficient frontage. I think there's, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, is 40 to 45 feet?
Yes.
Is that about right, in that
Correct,
stretch
yep.
right there? So they have sufficient access to put in a driveway, which is what's shown. And the lot width is from that new line, if I can put it up there, from that new line all the way to the water,
All the way
400 some odd feet. So it meets the regulation, and I specifically went to the building inspector, who, as you know, is also the zoning enforcement officer, and I put that question to him for his interpretation. What I just said to you was what he said to me, that it does meet the zoning requirement, even though it does not have 150 feet of frontage. The fire marshal sent a memo back to me in late January, which I forwarded to Mr. Thalman's colleague, that was where there was concern about the fire hydrant being close enough. This is a hydrant right here, That will be a new hydrant that the applicant will install. There is no hydrant on Browning Drive right now. Browning Drive is about 500 feet long, maybe a little longer, and there is a hydrant somewhere either north or south of Browning Drive on Boston Neck Road.
Yep, it's right at the corner, the northeastern corner of Browning Drive and Boston Neck Road.
So it did not meet the standard. Fire marshal made that comment. I forwarded it to them, and in the interim, since the last week of January and today, they managed to work this design out so that there will be a new hydrant added on this corner in Browning Drive. That'll actually be great because it will serve that entire neighborhood, make that entire neighborhood much more, much safer.
Do we have a follow-up letter from the fire marshal agreeing to this?
Uh,
Because I didn't see it in the packet.
I don't have a follow-up letter from the fire marshal agreeing to that. We could make certain that we get that in the packet before final approval is granted.
And I would have no objection to what Mr. DeLuca just said, and if you want to include that as a condition of approval, that'd be fine.
The issue that the fire marshal and I are kind of working through right now is, originally he felt it was best suited at the terminus of the cul-de-sac. What I've kind of responded back to him is, the majority of these properties are only partially occupied throughout the year. And in the event that there is an appreciable amount of snowfall, the tendency is going to be to push the snow to the end of the street. And I'm worried that if the hydrant is at the end of the street and there's an appreciable amount of snow, it's gonna be very difficult to access, whereas if it's just along the side of the road, the opportunity to access that is much greater. And I kind of use the rationale as if I split the difference, everybody kind of benefits.
Are you set? Okay, Dr. O'Neill.
Yeah, the fire hydrant thing obviously has to be settled with the material we have that says that it yet to be settled. Obviously, you have some good comments there. Can you tell me, there is a fire hydrant here, or there's not a fire
There's
hydrant?
not a hydrant here.
The nearest one is up at Boston Neck
Yeah,
Road.
about where my cursor's pointing here, it's at the,
Wow.
we can go back to the aerial, maybe we can catch it.
Yeah. Let me blow it up quick.
Not to
No, it's down there.
not to criticize me and my fellows here, but properties were developed there for years, all the way down to Bob Curhan's house, which is right over here. Without or knowledge or concern, I guess, we never talked about, fire hydrant access.
We weren't here.
Yeah, you guys weren't here, you would have picked that up. It's scary.
It's essentially right at the corner.
Yeah, right at the corner there.
Sorry, I didn't pick that up when I put the aerial in.
Yeah. But as far as where to put it, and as you said, this could be buried in snow at any time.
Doctor, you may recall that there was a subdivision just north of here some time ago. The subdivision that has the red and the green light at the entrance of the driveway.
Yes.
And at the time that one was approved, there was a hydrant about 800 feet south of the area. And that developer had to agree, in order to get the fire marshal's support, to move that one a little bit south and then install another one, intermediate, which is the one Mr. Thorman is pointing out here, so that the spacing of the hydrants on that stretch of Boston Neck Road was more even. So that stretch of Boston Neck Road was really underserved until about 2006 or so, when that subdivision came in.
Well, I'm always thinking other words. Can you go back to the aerial and the step down to the water? Yeah, well, I think you have. Where is the line here? The 200-foot line. That.
It's about one more.
Okay.
Is it,
So this is the 200-foot, and then this is the 25-foot setback.
okay, so your proposal in terms of, I guess the CRMC is gonna get in on that one. Your proposal in terms of where you're gonna build the house is in here, right?
Correct. Yep. We essentially use this as the setback on the eastern side.
So okay.
And Dr. O'Neill, we do have a preliminary determination from coastal, and one of your requirements of your staff is that we submit a final approval from them prior to getting final approval.
So it will be the setback will be out. Okay.
Jerry?
I think you're gonna bring up the right of way, right? Yeah, you go ahead, I don't have any comments.
All right.
Yeah, so the right of way, I'm curious about this right of way.
Mhm.
And then there's also a stone wall here, and I'm wondering about how that would be impacted by the drive. You know, the stone wall question is a question really for Mike, but the right of way, there's a right of way at the bottom of the property that says footpath right of way, but this
Yeah.
right of way, it's unclear what it's for. And
So this is actually the right-of-way for Browning Drive. So the easement across private property is this one, and then we have one that is on the eastern side of our property, which is this. So this is the one that'll, so basically, those parcels that have access to the easement, they have the permission through the easement to access the private property, then it's public here, and then it becomes private again, and then private through here.
so,
So really, all it is we would have to alter a portion of the stone wall to allow a driveway to be accessed, and that, I would say that's probably on the order of maybe 15 to 20 feet wide at the most.
so the right of way is a private right of way for people to walk across?
Correct.
To get, okay,
But it stops because this is public here.
okay.
But it's it's not a public right of way. It's a limited right of way for some number of people who have property rights in that area to use that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Gentlemen, any other questions from anybody?
Good.
So, I'm not sure, you have to bear with me on some of this stuff. Where would the issue of having language that would preclude further subdivision come in, Mike?
We've batted that concept around numerous times, Mr. Callahan, the question of whether we have the authority to prevent further subdivision merely by placing that phraseology on a record plat is questionable. People have a right to ask, even if it doesn't comply with zoning. Right now, these lots would be 1.5 acres each in a 1 acre zone. So to divide them, either of them would put something out of compliance. So I find that to be of,
Challenging.
well, no, I just find the provision of
The money's not
a
touching
restriction on further subdivision to be kind of dubious.
Okay. And your note said the expectation is you're gonna build a 6-bedroom house there?
Yes. Not me, but
No, I understand. And,
we'll have it first.
Go ahead.
no, that's it.
You said, Doctor?
Yeah, just a Narragansett story. So Bob Perrihan lived here. Bob Perrihan was a wonderful, wonderful physician, obstetrician, gynecologist here for about almost 50 years. I think his family still owns this property.
Yeah.
So this is one of those stories. So the tennis court here,
Yes, sir.
and there's a private walk down to the water. So one day he goes out up here, starts to walk. All of a sudden a voice comes from over here. You there? He said, I thought God had spoken. He said, what? What? He said, I don't like people walking along here. And he laughed so much, he had to tell me. He said, I couldn't believe it. The voice was like God. In any case, important people speak from these areas. But he's a wonderful guy. He lived right there. Played a lot of tennis himself. Little story, nothing to do with this.
Just one other point of information I wanted to add. The septic system that serves the existing dwelling is in this area here, so as part of this whole process, we are going to have to construct a new up-to-date septic system to service the existing dwelling, which is what we've identified up here.
Do I have any questions from the audience? Sir? Stand, be identified? Or just be identified? and that's it?
Paul Hermanzi, 200 Clark Road. This parcel's under 3 acres, and it's in a 1 acre zoning area. Seems to me they're going over an acre for the new pieces. That's gonna leave a shortage for the house that's there now. Why can't the new houses comply to the R40?
They do.
But there's under 3 acres of.
It's only in 1 acre zone, it's R40. So
Right, so you need 3 1 acre lots.
we're only,
You don't have
we're only,
enough.
we're only creating 2.
So you're taking away property from the house that's there.
But what is left still conforms. If it's almost 3, 2.98,
Right.
and the requirement is actually less than 1 acre, it's about 0.85.
Just a smidgen, yeah.
So those two combined would be a minimum of 80,000 square feet. We have almost 100,000.
I think it's a language issue, sir. We're
Hold on,
only creating
hold on,
one
guys, hold on.
lot.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, if it's best if you direct people to
Yeah.
direct everything to the
Yeah,
board.
this is
I
in a
apologize, Mr.
conversation.
Chairman, I should have
So
directed.
let's establish that dividing the 2 lots, there's only 2 lots, there's not 3. Each lot will meet the 1 acre minimum for the
40,000
zone.
square foot.
Okay? Does that answer your question, sir?
The 2 new ones will
Yes.
40, well, you said it'd be over an acre, so it wouldn't be,
Though they have to meet an acre each.
at least an acre each.
Right.
Yes.
So, the one that's there now will,
We'll have at least an acre.
If you want to go to what we're proposing as the record plan, Mike, I can give probably specific.
Let me see, that one?
Yep. So, what is parcel 1 would be 1.31 acres or 1.51 acres, and parcel 2 would be 1.49 acres. 64,896 square feet and 65,771.
So they're both almost an acre and a half.
okay.
Any other questions from the public? Staff, any added comments?
No, I pointed out the interesting, unique components to this plan. It's a pretty straightforward 2-lot subdivision. Everything complies with zoning, the comprehensive plan. Because it's only a 2-lot subdivision, they are not required to provide us with full designs of septic systems right now. Those will have to be handled at this stage, at the building permit stage. So I would recommend approval. I would change, you see I have 6 conditions listed there. Condition 1 could be removed and replaced by a condition that would suggest a letter by the fire marshal accepting the location and design of the new fire hydrant prior to the final plat submittal.
Do you have any problem with that, Attorney?
No, not at all.
All right. You're familiar with all the other conditions?
We have no problem with any of the conditions staff has put forth. We want to thank staff for reviewing this with us. As Mr. DeLuca said, it has some nuance to it based upon the sizing of the lots and the shapes, but we appreciate the effort staff put in, and that's why we're here tonight.
Any additional questions for the board doc? Jerry?
No?
Rupert? Tom? All set? Okay, so we need to make a motion to comprehensive plan.
No, you don't need to do that, because we've already, within the memorandum, we established that.
Okay,
You really only need to accept the findings as your own and approve the plan as drafted, unless you want to make changes. There is the one conditional change I just mentioned.
So move the application before us, plan D, 775 Boston Neck Road, 2-lot minor subdivision, lot 12 on Assessor's Plat and reply positively to staff's comments and recommendations dated February 16th, 24, with modification of number 1 recommendation, changing that to, I believe it was requiring a letter from the fire marshal prior to final approval.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous, ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Mr.
Board.
Chairman and members of the board.
Thank you for moving this up in your meeting.
No problem. Thank you. All right. So we have a site review. A.L. Brady, no relation. LLC, Hogan, was continued. Lot D, lot 170-3, 3 Rose Court. And that is number 6 in the tab. Welcome back, sir.
Yep, hi, Tom Hogan, owner of the property. So we went back and had it re-surveyed, to be more accurate. We included the overhang, we took a couple inches off the deck, balcony we were talking about putting on. And
Tom, I've
we're
got,
still gonna be over a little bit,
yes, so,
about 25 square feet.
this is your updated site plan, correct?
This is the update, yeah, so the setbacks are all fine, everything was good, we just have this little bit of a... We went over it with Jill, we talked about, there's a deck that covers the portion of the entrance over here. If we didn't put a membrane on it and let the rain go through, we would be fine because we wouldn't have the coverage, I guess. But that would make sense because that's how you walk into the house. And everybody's gonna have to get rained on when they walk into the house, so. My only option is to eliminate this. And then I think it became totally compliant, if I remember, when we discussed it. I just don't think it enhances the look of the area, the whole look of everything. And like I said last time, if I'm gonna do it, I wanna do it right and make it look nice.
Can we put the front elevation up so people can see what we're talking about?
Front elevation,
Yeah,
how's that?
that's it.
This
Yeah,
year,
point out the overhang.
we talked about if we took this deck and made it no membrane under it to rain through, but then you walk into the house that way and it just didn't make sense. You know, so, I don't know, that's just, it's more of a look to enhance the look of the house. And it ends up being 18 inches by 11 feet. I mean, no, it's 28 inches by 11 feet. And it's open, there's no membrane under that, so the water runs through, but it's still counted as building coverage.
Staff?
That's
have
why I
anything?
understand it anyhow.
Okay, staff have
And I'm not an
anything to
expert.
Sure. So just to walk you back from last month to how we are, where we are today. At the last meeting, Mr. Hogan and staff, we looked at the application. We were looking at, originally at that covered porch that he's reconstructing. If it were an open sun deck, then it might qualify for the provision under section 2.2 for open sun decks and the deck exemption, so on and so forth. So he asked for continuance. We went forward and looked at that. Turns out that the deck will not be open sun deck. It will have the membrane for all the reasons he just explained.
This one, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Correct. And then at the same time, what was triggering two pieces of dimensional nonconformity is that balcony. So if, Mike, could we go back to the site plan?
Tell me where you want to go?
Yep, the site plan, please. Thank you. So if you look at the site plan, we discovered actually in the meantime that the existing dwelling and the proposed dwelling actually have an 18-inch overhang, which is more than what the ordinance would allow for a variety of reasons. But Mr. Hogan shows it on here, so it actually gives you a revised number. Yeah, thank you. The revised number for the lot coverage. So you'll notice in your report that the lot coverage numbers have changed. At that time, we thought that if he could put a Juliet balcony underneath that existing overhang, therefore not increasing his lot coverage allowance, then he wouldn't be increasing his dimensional nonconformity with lot coverage, and he would meet section 10.1. He also reduced the size of that deck from 15.8 to 16, so he eliminated the dimensional nonconformity for the side yard setback. So in conversations with Mr. Hogan, we showed all that. He did reduce or eliminate that exacerbation of the dimensional nonconformity for the setback. However, he decided that he would like, for the reasons he just mentioned, to keep that deck. So we are still where we are with the lot coverage. A little bit different, the numbers you can see in your report are crossed out, but there still is a lot coverage overage, which doesn't meet the standard for the special use permit under section 10.11, I believe.
So legally, we can put a recommendation in, but this has to go to zoning for approval.
Yep.
So, okay. All right. Questions, Dr. O'Neill?
That little deck you have there, you probably have seen this, right over here is one of those.
I'm sorry, what's that?
The deck you have right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one right here, this house, with that same sculpted support. Do we have a picture of that in terms of
Is that your house,
proposal
Tom?
for that deck? Yeah, this guy.
We don't have anything across the street, Doctor.
That's my house across the street.
It is, it's Tom's house that's across the
Yeah.
street.
Right, well, right here, there's one of those.
It's
Yeah, I'm
Tom's
not sure why
house.
that's there.
Right there.
There's, right across the street, there's a property that's owned by my brother-in-law,
Yeah.
and then my
That's
house
you
is
right there. You wanna look up?
Oh, okay. Sorry, we have it in the aerial. Let me just find it. Oh, no,
If you,
No.
did you cut
Gotta
it?
come back.
got cut.
In any case, I'm back again today, and again, from the aesthetic standpoint, I think what we're trying to do is a positive thing. And you know, if you've been here before, I was stickler, 1 foot is 2 feet.
What's
But-
that?
I'll slow down. I'm a stickler, 1 foot is 2 feet. If you violate the rules, but
I understand.
I think what you're trying to do and the way you've consolidated this, I think the aesthetics of that structure, you can't put the picture up there, but it looks like Narragansett. And we've lost
This
so
is
much
the picture.
character. Yeah, that picture.
Oh, yeah, we
Which
don't
is
have
really,
that.
that's a nice picture of it. But these,
Oh,
these supports here, you know, the scope of it, I just, my opinion, I would bend the law here for this, for what he's attempting to do. That's just my opinion.
Sure. Well said. I concur with Dr. O'Neill. I applaud the look. Looks fine. Nicely done.
Luther? Any questions?
Ditto, yeah, this is a case where meeting the letter of the law is shooting yourself in the foot.
I went to great extent to try to make it fit
And you did a great job.
perfectly to the footprint and still make it really nice.
Can the staff put up the picture of the existing dwelling so public gets an idea of just,
I don't know if I have that picture.
okay,
I didn't bring mine, it was in the packet.
give a contrast to just what he's trying to accomplish?
What's the plan on?
D170.
Oh, you do that.
That
one right there.
So that's what's there right now. Okay. Just to refresh the
That's what I
board,
wanted.
and that's what he wants to accomplish.
So it kind of,
Scroll down, you might get to the.
I mean, it's-
And that's the proposal.
There we go.
Really?
That's why I say these sculpted areas under, and just, as I say, maybe it's not your house, right over here, from that picture.
if it was in
but-
your neighborhood, you'd want that next to it.
Yeah, I think you're doing a beautiful job.
I like the iris too.
Do you have any questions from the public? Comments? Staff, anything to add?
No, no, you have the revised project summary in front of you, which has, walks you through the changes. And whatever you determine tonight, we will put forward to the zoning board. I'll take out the highlight strikeouts and move it on.
Do you understand the standards that you have to meet? Do you agree with all of those? Okay. All the conditions that
Yeah,
you
I've
put
gone through
forth?
it all, and then gone through it, and
Okay. All right. Doc, any questions or redirect?
I'm good.
Jerry?
No.
Rupert? Tom?
Good.
Okay, I need a motion from the board.
So do we need a motion for completeness?
I got it.
Michael, do we need a completeness?
Yes.
Motion? Move the application before us, tax assessor plat D, lot 170-1, is complete in conformance with town comprehensive plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Passes unanimous.
Move the application before us, Brady LLC, tax assessor plat D, lot 17-1, positively with the staff's comments and recommendations in the dated correspondence February 14, 2024.
With revised notations.
With the revised notations, that's right.
Do I have a second?
I'll second
Yep,
that.
all right,
Sorry.
so,
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, wait a minute.
so I just want to be clear, Dr. Neal, are you, I thought I heard this, maybe I'm incorrect, correct me if I'm wrong, that you are making the recommendation for approval with, as proposed with the deck?
With the
So then,
variance.
if you take a look at condition 1, I think you may want to propose striking condition number 1.
Oh, good catch.
Bottom of page
Good
3,
point. Yeah, no, good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I made a note and I missed
and
it.
the rest all look good.
No, I missed.
Yeah,
that.
I'll take out the revised one too.
That's
Yeah.
on mine, that's on me.
Striking number.
Board agree to that?
So two, you
Yeah.
could just say Dr. Neal 2 through 6. Yes.
So I have a motion, I have a seconded, all those in
Sorry,
favor?
second.
I
Uh,
second it.
Jerry,
Thank you.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have a site review, Gregory, Plat M, Lot 167-154, 74 Shore Drive.
Hi there, how are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. My name is Cody Ethier. I am a project manager for Raven Builders. We are a general contractor in the state of Rhode Island that the homeowner, Carrie and Otto Gregory, have contracted to hopefully build this deck that we're looking at. So 74 Shore Drive is in Breakwater Village. And what we are requesting, the homeowner brought us out because their deck, the rear deck on the property is due to be replaced. It's taken a beating over the years. And the current deck is 7 feet deep.
That pointer, you want to use it?
Oh, here we are. So the deck right here,
There you go.
You have to,
You have to hold it down.
hold it, okay, yep, holding it down. So
No,
we're
no
7.
dot.
Doesn't show.
You have to lift your left leg.
It is a very tiny little dot there, but it is not getting brighter.
Can't even know that.
Sorry about
We're
that.
gonna change the batteries.
Oh, here we go, okay. So the deck here is 7 feet deep currently, by about 24.8, 25 feet. What we are requesting is to actually replace this deck and extend it by to a total of 14 feet deep. 7 feet is just unfortunately not large enough to be able to really use a deck. Chairs kind of have to all be lined up in a row, can't put a dining table outside. So as you can see, we're fine with our lot setbacks, but what we run into is a coastal feature setback. So instead of the 50 feet that is required, if we do this proposed 14-foot deck, we are going to be within 36 feet of the coastal feature, and that is the relief that we are asking for.
Can you comment to the replacement of the existing deck on the other side?
Yep, so this, the side deck here, there is an entrance door right here. This existing deck is currently 15.8 by 3.3 or so. What we are actually requesting is we're going to remove this. If there were any concerns about lot coverage, that was one way, but as it turns out, we were just fine on that. So instead of this 15 and change long deck, we're going to be replacing this with just a 3 by 3 landing to meet code and just stairs that go out to the driveway side of the property.
Anything else to add?
No, just any questions you guys might have.
Anything from staff, please?
Well said.
Dr. O'Neill?
Yeah, can you explain, you've got stairs here and stairs here, and the coastal features here.
That's
Why
right.
do you need these stairs here? Why don't you just use the stairs right here?
So that is functional to use the yard as well as aesthetic choice that we're looking to make. This is a really beautiful area of grassy area that goes out to some seagrasses and overlooks the cliffs here.
But it's too close to the water, yeah. Too close to the
It is.
coastal feature here. Well, no, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
practical thing.
Sure.
If you're gonna use this for recreation things, that's nice.
Yes.
But your disturbance is closer and closer by adding on this nice
Absolutely.
deck. You're much closer to the coastal feature.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
why can't you remove these steps and use steps here? Because you can extend those as close to that line as you can, maybe move them down a little further.
Sure. So, you know, like I said, one of the choices is aesthetic. One would obviously be if we are going to have this larger deck, we do want a larger set of stairs, so your recommendation there for the larger set of side stairs. I believe that the homeowner, Carrie, wanted to, did you want to say something to that effect, if she could? Carrie Gregory, homeowner.
Can you step to the podium, because then you're going to be in the camera.
The camera, everybody's waiting to see.
Yes.
Carrie Gregory.
I'm pretty sure we're a lot more than 50 feet from the ocean here. The coastal feature is like, that we're less than 50 feet from will be over here, not that way.
I'll put the aerial back up so you can get a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got plenty of space
Context.
that way.
It's over
Sorry.
here. No, that's
It's
okay.
because of erosion over here that, actually, part of my existing house, I think, is less than 50 feet from
It is,
that
yeah.
side. It's that side that's less than 50 feet, not the ocean.
Yeah, this little corner right here of the existing house, which was permitted, everything was permitted back in 2002, I believe.
Yeah, that's when the house was
But even, yeah, like this little corner of the house is within the coastal zone there.
What's that measurement?
So this corner, the proposed corner of the deck,
The existing corner of the house.
the existing corner of the house,
Is that on the other one?
that is on the coastal feature setback. So I apologize that I do not actually have, so 50 feet is this larger dash line. So I don't have the exact measurement from the corner of the house, but it's this little tiny corner there. And you can see that if we wanted to do a deck that was all within the coastal setback, we'd have a very strange shaped deck.
Doctor, you want to set?
No. No, you haven't explained why do you need this extra few feet for the coastal feature?
For the
You
deck
can-
or for the
You can
stairs?
satisfy that with this stairs right here. You have access to that area. I don't understand that.
So is the question about the deck itself or just the stairs portion?
The stairs, no,
Just
the
this-
deck is, you already explained that.
Sure, okay. So yeah, the stairs, I mean, we're open to your recommendations. The stairs would end up right about here. Those are not an issue with the coastal feature going out this direction. I don't think that they actually, encroach as much as maybe that last site plan made it seem when you look at this overhead aerial view. But we could certainly reconsider a larger set of side stairs to service that large square footprint of the deck versus the front. That is an aesthetic and functional choice, just have a larger set of staircases.
Can I ask Dale?
Yes.
Yeah, what's the rule here in terms of distance from the coastal feature? Is it 200 feet?
Sure. So the jurisdictional boundary for the coastal resources overlay is 200 feet. So anything within 200 feet, it's the same number as CRMC uses. Anything within 200 feet would necessitate some type of, any construction or development would necessitate some type of approval from the town. If it's 51 feet to 200 feet, it's an administrative approval. And there's other rules about that if it's closer than that, but no closer than existing development. In this case, they did have a previous approval for the structure and the deck, and they're asking to demolish the deck and rebuild the deck that's closer. Dr. Neal, I just want to point out that the steps that you're referring to are actually not the closest point to the coastal feature. That's not what's triggering the relief. It's the corner of the deck. Oh, down
Right here, right?
Yep, right there.
Yep.
It's the corner of the deck that's triggering the relief. The steps are not, if you go back to the aerial, you can actually see, and I think maybe Cody pointed out, there was, and Ryan and I looked at this, there's been some fairly, I don't want to say significant, but visual coastal erosion from the previous approval to this approval. So when the house was previously approved, it was compliant, now it isn't.
So the coastal feature is actually, as we look at this aerial, it's to the left. It is not
Yes,
down.
correct. It's, I mean, it is also to the south and west, but the closest point is to the west.
To the west.
But they don't own that.
Correct.
Okay.
No, it's-
So what's the distance from here to the water? It's way under 200 feet.
It is over the 50 feet, which we understood as, that would be administrative review only. So we were not expecting the stairs to be kind of a potential sticking point here. Really more the fact that this corner of the deck is encroaching on that over, under 50-foot mark.
so as the chair, I'm going to step in. So if the stairs was a sticking point,
Yes,
would you consider removal of the stairs in your proposal?
we could certainly, talk about that. Of course we would. The deck is of course the priority here.
And the other option is not only move, but then set them right in there. If you have to have those steps going out there.
If we did have to do that, I will say that the point of making this deck bigger is to make more usable space, and when we do inset stairs as that, you do create less usable deck space when you have a set of
Absolutely,
stairs.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But you're further away from the coastal feature.
Correct.
That's just me, I'm gonna stick with it.
Sure.
Dr. O'Neill, you all set? Jerry?
I have a question. Was there, when the house was built, was there a considerable amount of fill put in there in the back?
That, we're not aware, the homeowner is not the one that built the house.
Because it seems to be high, the actual lawn itself.
The actual lot is, Mr. Gregory had measured at one point the cliff, the edge of the cliff,
Yes,
down
yes.
to the water. I believe he measured it somewhere, I don't know if it was high tide or low tide at that point, but somewhere between, he thought that it was between 14 and 18 feet down to the water. I don't have those actual measurements, so I can't speak to that.
That helps, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Rupert?
So, I have a question, I think, for staff. And I forget the codes, but this is the VE zone? Is that the high wave energy zone there, or?
Yes, it's a VE zone with a base flood elevation of 14. So it's a velocity zone.
So it is a velocity range?
Correct.
Because I guess that's the one thing that hits me is like if you have wave energy there, as we recently saw in decks along the beach.
Yeah.
You put steps in there and they're gonna get blown away.
Sure.
And
Yep. And we're
it's
very
not only a risk to the house, but it's a risk to neighbors.
Of
because
course. No, that's completely understandable. We are in, as far as if we were to get through this step and work with the building department, between the building department and working with an engineer that we work closely with, Ernie George, as far as building methods, happy to consider multiple different building methods, footing styles, breakaways, that kind of thing.
The project would be required,
Okay.
just for
Of
clarification.
course.
The project would be required to be flood zone compliant.
Okay.
So in this case, it would need to be separated from the house. It would have to be a detached structure. In the case that something happens in the deck, the
Needs to
deck
break away, yeah,
breaks away from the home. It doesn't take the home with it.
of course.
So just so you guys are aware
Yep.
that there's no wiggle room with that. The project will be required to comply with the flood zone, with federal, state, and local regulations.
You all set? Rupert, you all set? Tom?
I don't know, Jill, how much, in between when you looked at the last picture and this picture, how much coastline was eroded over that period of time? Do you have an estimate in terms of linear feet?
I don't, Mr. Callahan. 5, 7, maybe?
It was considerable.
It was enough to trigger relief.
Yeah.
If this house were being built today, it would be enough to trigger relief.
Okay.
I think
And that's over what's the time frame
For,
between picture A and picture B?
So the house was on, the last variance was, and the house was built in 2002.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay, 2000.
yeah, I think
That's what I heard.
when Ryan and I looked at it, the last image we looked at was 11 to 23, so 12 years.
Okay. One of the standards, because this is in an overlay district, is that we have the burden to demonstrate that the feature, that what you're planning to do is going to actually enhance the protection of the environmentally sensitive feature. Can you address that?
So I can certainly say that we're happy to, if there's recommendations as far as different plantings that are needed for erosion control, we would of course be complying with all of the erosion control measures that CRMC and the state lay out. As far as actually enhancing, I mean, the current and existing deck with the condition that it is in and the quality that it is in, that would not surprise me if that, flew away at the next storm. So certainly something that we put up with a higher level of construction and newer materials, that's going to enhance the quality and the strength of what's out there versus just leaving this old deck.
No, I get that.
Yep.
But the language is enhance the protection of the environmentally sensitive feature.
So the coastal feature. To be honest with you, I cannot speak to that.
Okay.
I cannot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So any questions or comments from the audience, from the public? Anything from staff? To add?
No.
Dr. O'Neill, redirect, and more questions?
Yeah, just, Tom walks along Ocean Road regularly, exercises, that's not personal, is it? In any case, talking about erosion,
Yeah.
we had that storm, what, a week or two ago, wind was at least 70, 80 miles an hour. And the property in front of me down by the water, they lost another foot. So when you talk about that, it's serious. Erosion is erosion. And if there's nothing done along those properties, I won't be here. Well, maybe some of you guys will. When that line there keeps advancing. So it's a good point that you make. What is being done with these properties here to lessen erosion?
Well, if I can
get
jump,
these storms.
if I can jump in there one
Yeah.
second. So, and the homeowner can speak to this. They've been in constant contact over the years with CRMC, having improvements to that cliff wall. Done the last one you guys paid for privately, even without state funds, without the state coming in to do that. So there are constant efforts to rebuild and to reestablish this cliff wall.
I'm sorry, the cliff wall is where?
So all this is about a cliff that's about a 14, call it, foot drop.
But the erosion loss that we're talking about is to the west, is that correct?
Correct,
We've
this
been
is
talking
state
about-
land.
yep.
Yeah, this is state land over to the left.
But we don't want to lose land.
No, I'm sure you do.
Obviously, so I planted, I researched and looked for native plantings, sustainable native stuff, that has a good root system, that would stop damage from runoff in particular, because you've got, damage from the ocean coming this way, but not so much for this particular property. I looked back to aerial photos from 1940, and this particular spot doesn't lose, over the decades, it hasn't lost much, but I planted a row of low-growing switchgrass, which has a really, like an 8-foot deep when it's matured root system. I'm doing what I can. You know, we build that up. We, you know, with natural, with rock, and that's there already. And I plant what I can on our property to try to prevent, you know, erosion from both sides. And I'm very open to any suggestions that anyone might have to, because we want to protect our property. Yeah. Open to.
Any other questions from the board?
I could suggest some illegal things, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do it.
We're all ears, so yeah.
So, I had similar questions, but my question is, this has been approved by Breakwater Village?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so,
That's a-
all right. Yeah, no, I just want to put that on the record and just get it out there. Has Breakwater Village done anything? Are they looking at anything to help with
Yeah.
Mother Nature?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a cliff committee, I'm on the cliff committee, because this, I mean, we're at the end of the village.
Do you guys have a panned out aerial of the whole neighborhood? No, of Google Maps or anything?
So then it goes kind of like, we stick out, and then it goes, and as you go in this way, those properties have lost more land. And then, so there's like 5 of us here, and then we come to a section of the cliff that is communal cliff, that the whole, so the.
No, I didn't want to get that deep into it. I just was
Okay.
curious if there being any.
Yeah, we hired Smithfield Keith, the whole village did recently, to
GIS.
try to shore up the.
So, from the staff, just want to make, what's that? Oh, you had, anybody else? I had asked all the way around. Tom?
I didn't see it in here, maybe I missed it. Is this requiring CRMC?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
that'll be next, hopefully.
Anybody else have any questions? So, just to staff, just to make sure that everybody understands, we are here because they're looking for a variance, a special use permit.
Yes.
And the variance is for setback on the corner of the house to the west.
The corner of the deck.
Corner of the deck, I'm sorry, corner of the deck to the west for the coastal feature.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And shouldn't be any problem there because those stairs aren't actually there. All right, so we understand that. Do you understand the conditions placed out?
That was in the project, that were in the project summary, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, and you're okay with meeting those conditions?
Correct.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
You guys should take it because you can tell where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Completeness first, gentlemen.
Do you want to at least do completeness?
Sure. The application before us, Gregory, tax assessor, plat M167, lots 154 is complete in conformance with town comprehensive plan.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those opposed? All right, ayes have it, it's unanimous. Okay. Need a proposal on the variance and the special use permit in reference to the coastal feature setback from the corner of the deck to the west.
So I'll try this. I move the project before us, tax assessor's plat M167 lot 154, 74 Shore Road, affirmatively in requesting relief for variance and coastal resources overlay district, and incorporate the findings of fact in the staff report and the
Conditions?
conditions,
Page 2 to page 4?
yeah, the conditions on, in the staff report recommendations,
Want to add any more to that?
That's what I have.
Maybe more than that, that covers them.
Is it good?
Well, I would say that planning board review meets compliance with applicable development performance standards, compatible with surrounding uses, suitability of site for the proposed use, availability of alternatives for proposed projects, adequate proposed measures to mitigate adverse environmental impacts. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll make the second.
So there is a second on the motion. All those, passage of the motion would be in the affirmative recommendation for zoning. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No?
Nay.
Nay. Rupert?
Aye.
Aye, oh, sorry, we have 2 in favor, 2 opposed. Chair will vote in favor. 3 to 2. So you now go to zoning.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Thank
well.
you.
3 to 2.
Yeah.
3 to 2.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
So, Monsieur De Luca, we're going to go back to C1.
We will go to C1.
Zoning ordinance text amendment, regulation two-family dwelling.
That's number 2.
That is number 2 on the tab.
I'll turn this over to Jill. The two-family dwelling.
I think he's turned it over to you.
Oh, we did?
He did.
I did.
Surprise!
Okay. Okay, so you have the report in front of you. Mike and I attempted to lay it out in the most logical sense. With the new law, with the new mandates that are taking place, which I know you're all familiar with, and I quoted it right here in the top of your memorandum, that substandard lots of record are no longer required to meet the lot area for their lot. So if it's a 5,000 square foot lot in an R10, in the town of Narragansett, we didn't necessarily require a variance. In some towns, of my understanding, legal just walked out, but my understanding is that you wouldn't be able to build on a substandard lot of record of 5,000 in an R10. In the town of Narragansett, prior to January 1st, 2024, we offered something in section 6.5 called modified dimensional regulations. So if you didn't meet the lot area, we would go to this table in section 6.5, and then it would, depending upon your lot area and your frontage, it would tell us what your modified dimensional setbacks were. Is everyone with me on that? Or all remember that? Okay. Yep. So the state mandate, the state law change, that went away. That whole section in our ordinance went away. And it was replaced with what you see on page 1 of the staff report, which is, and I'll read it for folks who don't have it in front of them, that a substandard lot of record is not required to seek any zoning relief based solely on the failure to meet the lot size requirements of the district in such lot it's proposed.
Can I stop you for just 1 second, Jill? The notion of district is the first time I saw that language. So could you, how many zoning districts are there in the town of Narragansett?
I have to count on my fingers, Tom.
Total zoning districts, we got 5 residential, 3 business, 2 industrial, urban renewal, and public, whatever
There you
that
go.
adds up
Those
to.
are, so it's not a geographic concept, it's a, when you say districts,
Zoning districts.
you're just talking about it's not a geographic, it's not a geographic, because if you go to the assessor's card on any property, and you look at it, it'll have a district on it, and there's a numerical number associated with it.
Right.
And what is that?
Well, it's either R10, R20, R40, whatever. So,
So it goes back to the category, and it's not a geographical
well,
area.
of course it's geographical, it's where you are.
Okay.
It has to do with the zoning of the property that is in play, and that zoning, as you know, is not, it covers large swaths of the town. It's not just one lot at a time. So, for instance, the vast majority of Bonnet Shores is zoned R10. If you look up any individual lot in that part of Bonnet Shores, it'll be listed as an R10 zone. The lot isn't an R10 zone, the lot is designated R10 because it's located in the R10 zone. So, it may be a little semantical argument, but
They're both saying the same thing.
it is definitely a geographic issue.
Okay, so, go ahead, let me just, one other, I want to put on the table when we talk some further about that. There are neighborhoods, at least one neighborhood, where within contiguous properties on contiguous streets, properties that abut each other, some that are designated R40s, some that are designated R80s. What I'm trying to figure out is, in a contiguous area, how does that happen, and how frequently does it happen?
Well, I would say that the zoning districts all abut one another, so and Mike, if you would like, I could pull it up on GIS just for clarification, so everyone can see what the zoning districts are in town. No one can see me here, but R40 is adjacent to R80, so there will be zoning districts adjacent to one another.
No, I'm not talking about.
This one doesn't have, this one doesn't have GIS plugged into it. I can't get the GIS on this.
No, this neighborhood has on the same side of the street, on properties abutting each other.
Yeah.
Some are R40s, some are R80s, and it's not because this district is all R40s is butting up against this district of R80s.
It's the size of the property.
I'm not sure where that information is coming from. I'm not familiar with anything like that.
We're talking about one particular neighborhood that
We're aware
Mr.
of.
Gallahan is very familiar with. And it seems to me, after looking at the GIS this afternoon with him, that we either have typographical errors, a typographical error on the GIS map that doesn't indicate the accurate zoning, or the database for GIS is not up to date. I suspect it's the latter, and that some of those lots that are designated R40 in the database, which again is not, our GIS database is not official, need to be double checked and corrected. The zone of the neighborhood we're talking about is R80.
So, but when you say, I just want to be clear, when you say GIS database, are you referring to what you see on the tax card?
I was working off the GIS database. I did not have the tax cards.
I worked off both too.
Okay, so the tax card is
I've
not
seen the tax-
accurate.
No, I've seen the
Not
tax card-
accurate.
I've seen the tax card and they've done it through the geo, whatever.
Okay, I'm not able to answer this question because I don't have it in front of me and I wasn't privy to that conversation
I don't
today.
want to delay this any further. I simply want to say is, if the underlying assumption is, there's an underlying assumption about district and properties in the district being similarly zoned, in terms of similar zoning designation. I want to kind of put that out there as kind of a placeholder for a conversation I want to have over there.
That's fine.
Yep.
We can look into this to find out what is the correct zoning. I believe the neighborhood we're talking about is R80.
Sorry.
I believe that the the database that goes along with the GIS program as well as the tax cards are out of date. We need to go back and confirm that by looking up the zoning that was assigned to that area. So we could go all the way back to 1970,
Okay.
which is when the zoning that we have in place today was established.
We can
I
table
just
that for
put that,
another
I wanna
time.
put that
I'd like to
pin in,
get,
pin in that and come back.
yeah, I'd like to get back
Yep.
to what's at hand,
Okay,
so please.
sure. So what the map that you were just looking at actually, unfortunately didn't show the overlay of the
Jill,
zoning.
I'm sorry, can you?
Yeah, not to be a Budinsky,
Too late.
but in the 60s where it was all zone 1 acre, and then they moved it, was it 70, Mike? Made it all 2 acres, so I live in the next area where
Yeah.
many of the properties are 1 acre, but now most of them are all 2 acres, so.
Right.
So there, there is a mix.
Yep.
Okay,
when we
so
upgrade. Go
gentlemen,
ahead.
this
Go ahead.
is a topic we're gonna deal with on another time.
Yeah,
This
go
is
ahead.
gonna be lengthy enough, and we have a second one that's key in a presentation.
Yep, yep.
So if we can make this a future agenda
No,
item,
no, Mark, let me simply say, it's important in the context of what we're doing here.
I appreciate what you're
Because,
saying.
no, because it's important in the context of what we're doing here. I don't wanna hold it up any further right now. I am saying there may be a point in time in this conversation where I come back to it, that's all I'm saying.
That's fine, and I respect that.
You're not speaking loud enough for the audience.
I know, because I don't mean for them. This is sidebar, Dr. O'Neill.
Jill, I'm
He
just
hasn't learned to
Jill,
read lips yet?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
All right.
If it comes back, I can.
We could do that. The important thing is that, do we have, are we under a time constraint with this one? Does this have a public hearing already scheduled?
No,
No.
I
Okay.
think it,
So let's get as much discussion underway as we can.
Sure.
As Tom
As
says,
deep
we'll
as we
put a
can.
pin in this one and
Right.
maybe a few other subjects or sub context of this topic area, and we can come back and address them all in a future time. But what Jill did, what's up on the screen is, looks like, kind of some sort of a Rorschach test, but it really is a copy of different segments of the town and the mapping showing zoning as well as lot size related to zoning. I'll leave it to Jill to do the better, more complete explanation of that.
okay, so if we go back to the report, we were talking about lot area. So for substandard lots of record, and then A says the setback frontage and lot width requirements under the section is reduced by the same proportion as the lot area is non-compliant with the underlying zone. Again, 5,000 square foot lot, and in R10 it's 50%, 7,000 square foot lot, it's 30%. And those dimensional regulations are reduced or increased on that proportionality. And same thing for building coverage. So that's what you see in italics on the first page of your report. What I did, and I will say that these are raw numbers, meaning I did not go through the fine-tooth comb and try to pull out every R10A that might have already had a business on it, or every R10 lot that might be owned by the town or in some other ownership where this provision wouldn't be subject to that. But raw numbers, we have about 6,100 lots in the R10 and R10A zone. 47%, roughly 47%, or 2,800 of them are less than 10,000 square feet. Okay, so the other, and also to double back, so the ordinance says any use that's permitted. Single-family uses are permitted in residential zones, and two-family uses are also permitted in residential zones. R10, R10A, R20, and R40. They're permitted right now by special use permit in the R80 zone. So they're a permitted use. They had, prior to January 1st, they had other dimensional components. For instance, in an R10 zone for a two-family, you needed 20,000 square feet of area. You needed additional lot width. And so if someone were to come in and they didn't meet those requirements, they would have had to seek variances for those shortcomings. The new regulations remove that. They say if it's permitted, it does not need to seek a variance based only on its lot area. So in an R20 or an R10 that would require 20,000 square feet and it doesn't have 20,000 square feet, it can't be required to seek a variance simply for its dimensional nonconformity, its area nonconformity. And then all of those other provisions are come into play, so that again, if it's we'll say it's a 10,000 square foot lot for a two-family, that's 50% as opposed to it would have been a compliant zone for a single family. So I did some math. I know we all know how I am with math, but I did math to give you some examples of that so you could see the way it breaks down for R10 and R20. I like visuals, so this is what you see up here. So if you look down in the lower left-hand corner, the lots that I just mentioned, of the 61 of the lots, R10 and R10A, right there, that are less than 10,000 square feet. So all those, thank you, all those yellow lots you can see are lots that are less than 10,000 square feet. So they would all be subject to the substandard lot of record. So they're going to get the dimensional, they're going to get that proportionality variance. They would have already been permitted anyways under our old reg, so that they wouldn't have needed a variance for their dimensional substandardness or their area substandardness. For two-family lots in the R10 and R10A, I don't like. Took the number off the screen, but that's okay. That's okay. I have it. No, just kind of zoom up to the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Thank you. So of those 6,100 lots, again, rough numbers, approximately 5,300, just over 5,300 of those lots are less than 20,000 square feet. So they are area-wise non-conforming for a permitted two-family use, meaning they would no longer be subject to what was in section 6.5 for the lot area, and all of those other dimensional components would be non-conforming based on the 20,000 square feet. So it becomes a greater proportional non-conformity. Yes, you have a question, Tom?
I'm not good at math. So
Yeah.
let me ask you a math question. So if you had an area that was originally subdivided in early 1900s, and it was subdivided as 300 or 400 or 500 lots that were 20 by 80. And are now substandard, some of which have been merged, some of which have not been merged, all of which are less than 10,000 square feet, with the exception of maybe one or two. And none of them, and all of them are in an R80 zone. Does that make that problem worse or better?
Well, this isn't an R80 zone. This is R10 and R10A.
I know, but with the proportionality,
with the substandard lot,
with a substandard lot of record, would you essentially make this problem worse?
it would, I mean, you'd have to go lot by lot, but a 20 by 80 lot in an R80 zone.
Right. Right. So that's the reason why this is important.
No, good point, great point. Yep, great point.
I'm done with my interruption. Thanks for the math.
So these lots are not, lots of record, Tom, which is what I think what you're referring to. These are lots as they've been merged through our GIS post 2004. So they were all in the same ownership. So in the case of a neighborhood that might have 20 by 80 lots that were all in the ownership of Joe Smith, those lots, to get to that underlying, as close as they could of that underlying zone, those lots have been lumped together. They're not here because they're in an R80 zone, and I'm only looking at R10 and R20 right now.
But the reason I raise it is that we think about a text amendment for dealing with two-family apartments.
I understand.
And we look at facts on the ground and how, whether or not there are, and this neighborhood might be a unicorn. It might be the only neighborhood in Narragansett that's so configured. It may be a unicorn. but for that particular neighborhood, is being substandard lots of record, being the whole change with respect to proportionality and
Right.
R80 zone amplifies this issue for that area of town.
Well, in an R80 zone, a two-family structure was already a special use permit. It didn't require any area, it required a special use permit and still would under the proposed regulation. So in that zone, it would have already, it would have been subject to different parameters. It is, those lots are still, those lots are still subject to this mandated change. That's not
Right.
anything that we can
No,
debate here today. That's the state law.
No, I'm not looking to debate it, I'm
Yeah.
simply trying to be, as we kind of move through this, and again, it's a narrow piece, I know it's a narrow piece, but it's narrow because I've looked at it carefully over a fairly long period of time. I don't know whether or not there are any other neighborhoods in Narragansett for which something like this
There are.
is an issue. That's the reason why I raise it.
There are other substandard already lots in neighborhoods. Okay. So I wanted to just show visually what that looks like. So if you go to the left, it was difficult to show the town in one piece because it's long and narrow and you kind of lose the colors of it. But if you go to the left, you're going to see the north end of the neighborhood and then the north end of Bonnet. I think you can kind of make out where we are there. And then the two center images are the upper center of town, so just north of Sprague Bridge, and then that is the pier there on the lower middle box. Yep, thank you. And then on the right-hand side, you're going to see the south end of town. Yep, right there. So that's Scarborough. On the left-hand side, that's Great Island, and then there's Sandhill Cove down on the bottom. So just so you can see the areas in town that have R10 and R10A zoning districts that fall in these categories of less than 10 or less than 20. So I don't need to read the report to you. I think you read it. I trust that you all read it and you understand where we're going with this. So if we go to the next image, just so you can see, we did the same thing for R20. The future land use map refers to two different densities, moderate to high residential density and moderate to low. Moderate to high is the R10, R10A, and R20. So this is the R20. Again, so it's a little easier to break it out, but right there on the left-hand side, you can see that's the other half of Bonnet, and Briggs Farm, Harbor Island, the other side of Great Island, on the right-hand side, on the other side of Great Island, and then some other neighborhoods. Yep. So those are R20 lots that are less than 20,000 square feet in the lavender, and R20 lots that are less than 30,000 square feet in the blue. So two-family is permitted by right, so they wouldn't be subject to that area, which I mentioned earlier. In an R20, it would have been a 30,000 square foot requirement. So staff looked at the consistency with the comprehensive plan. We went through that, the land use appropriateness I just mentioned, the residential densities. I want to mention too, and I think I mentioned here in the report that one of the suggestions that the drafted document is suggesting is that for the special use permit, for the lots, for the zones that we're suggesting a special use permit for, that there is a provision right now. Oh, I should mention that, by the way, this law, this mandate does not require that any of these structures put in affordable housing. This is just two-family housing, so it doesn't go to further the affordable housing initiative or mandate that's been placed on individual municipalities and statewide. So it doesn't help us get to that 10% number. The document that's drafted, the revised ordinance, may actually help us get there. With the requirement for the special use permit, there are certain standards that have to be met, and then if those standards, if the proposed development is to put in affordable housing, be restricted, which would allow us to count it toward our state mandate, that those provisions could be waived. So as far as, that would be that land use component. As far as infrastructure, the staff looked at the infrastructure of this. This is, has a potential to, I mean, if you take it to its most illogical conclusion, it could almost double the density in town without any requirements or provisions or addressing the infrastructure at all, the water, the wastewater capacity, the roadway infrastructure. I did reach out to the town engineer, and you can see the note in here from the town engineer where he talks about, you know, has the potential for a significant impact and more information would need to be done, and it doesn't appear to comply. I did also reach out to the Director of Public Works, and he was generally concerned about it, but wasn't able to give me any real feedback in time for this meeting today. So I think I mentioned with area consistency, it does set forth the 5 zones, the requirements, the duplex. Again, there are approximately 6,100 lots in town. 1,300 are considered substandard for in the R20 zone, and 1,400 are less than substandard for the R22 family. It has the potential to increase the density. So as far as the promotion of the comprehensive plan, I think that the draft that you have before you, right now, we're suggesting that we prohibit this because we don't have the information for the infrastructure. But for the larger lots, not the substandard larger lots, but the bona fide larger lots in town, that may be able to be allowed through special use permit with this provision, and which would actually provide us affordable housing if the applicant were to choose to go that way. So then I went through the consistency with the purposes of zoning. You can see where it may be consistent with the purposes of zoning, and our conclusion, our recommendation, which is to prohibit at the moment until we have further information. Oh, thank you, Mike. So this is everything. This is everything, all in one view.
So to summarize, that could all be two-family, if you guys don't do so. Not you. The process doesn't happen.
But Steve, I'm just thinking about what you just said. Isn't the answer to that, isn't there more that can be two-family? It's just, that's what's gonna be changed from what's now single-family to two-family in an R10 and R10.
No, now a two-family is allowed in those zones.
Okay.
It was subject to the 20,000 square foot lot. It is, right now, if you were unlucky enough to have a platted an unplatted parcel of land, like there's one parcel on Boston Neck Road, you would still need 20,000 square feet. However, if you're lucky enough to have a platted parcel, which are all these, you now, because it's a substandard lot of record, you don't need the variance from the 20,000. It's whatever your lot is, and everything gets shrunk proportionally. So if you're just, again, a field, you got to comply with the 20,000 square feet. If you're everything else, subject to, you know, the setbacks, etc., then you pretty much can come in and request your two-family.
It almost becomes easier, if you have an undeveloped lot, it almost becomes easier to build a two-family than to build a single-family.
Could be.
So it's making, so I've got this, you're basically adding that R10, 10A, and 20. And 40s, you'd be subject to a special use permit?
Well, so staff only recommended R10 and R10A, not prohibiting two families, R10, R10A.
Not prohibiting?
Prohibiting.
Prohibiting.
Be up to you and the council whether you want to keep it at 10, R10, R10A, whether you want to move it to recommend
20 or 40.
20, 40, etc. So that's where the policy decision comes in. which is a legal decision.
Right,
It's
I get
a
it.
policy.
Doc, you have a?
You know, it's the fact that we're overload with the sewer capacity in the north end and we're underload in the south end. Does that factor in terms of this obvious possibility of a doubling the usage of the sewer?
The impact on sewer system, particularly in R10 and R20, is substantial.
Big time.
That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons we're focused on the higher density parts of town, because they are served by sewer. The sewer system was designed and has been expanded over the years, but primarily is designed to meet, complete development of the areas it serves based on the density that has been designated since 1970. So, as Jill has shown you here, a significant number of these lots could become two-family homes, or have two-family homes on them, thereby increasing the impact on the sewer system. So it's one of the primary reasons we focus so heavily on the higher density, the R10, R10A zones. If you look in the draft ordinance that we've also incorporated in the packet, one of the sections of Section 1224 of the ordinance, a section that we're intending on revising, we would require for the R20, R40, and R80 zones, special use permit. Under the new state law, we have to have a standard for every special use permit. So when you go to page 5 of the draft ordinance, you see additional special use permit standards for use code 02, which is for two-family homes, as follows. A minimum lot size of 100,000 square feet in an R80 zone. In an R40 zone, a minimum lot size of 60,000 square feet. So we're counting for some allowance to make, some of the lots could accommodate a second dwelling unit. But we believe that it should have a little bit more area, not the other way around as the legislation seems to impart to us. When you turn the page, we would also suggest a minimum of 30,000 square feet of land in an R20 zone in order to support a two-family home. So that's why we have in the table designated R80, R40, and R20 as special use permit. We didn't say you need double. We're saying your special use standard is everything that's in section 1224, but also this land area component. There's certainly many, how to say this properly, there are much fewer lots in R20, R40, and R80 than there are in the R10 zone. R10 dominates our town from Bonnet Shores to the pier to Middlebridge, Metuxet, Cena Cove, Scarborough Hills, So the biggest potential impact is in R10. We want to just prohibit. We don't want to prohibit two-family homes all over town, so our suggestion here is allow them, but allow a marginal increase, require, I should say, a marginal increase of land area in order to accommodate that in those zones. And in an R80, you need 100,000 square feet. In R40, you need 60, and in R20, you need 30.
Michael, you said something which to me is for clarification.
Sure.
We have adequate sewer capacity in the north end of town?
No, I didn't say that. I'm sorry.
I thought that's what you said. It was planned to handle.
No, I said we have adequate sewer capacity for the zoning that we put on the properties 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and anticipating one house for every 10,000 square feet of land in the R10s and one house for every 20,000 in the R20s. We didn't anticipate the R10 zones being dominated by an additional, what was the percentage? For the R10 zones?
47%?
47% for just R10 that were non-compliant with R10, and then 60-something% that were not compliant with
So we're holding our own.
R. We're for 20,000
Double it.
square feet, yeah.
So that is not accommodated in the wastewater management plan because there was no reason to up until 6 weeks ago.
So,
I thought we were way underwater already.
We are, we are.
Yeah,
We're at we're at
missing
100%.
communication here.
We are.
Oh, you would rather be sitting on this board when we denied, what's.
We're at 100% of allocated,
Oh,
close
okay.
to 100% of allocated capacity.
Yeah.
And depending on the weather, usage, rain, et
Yeah.
cetera, we're approximately anywhere between 82 and 86% of leased capacity, meaning
That's
we
true.
were over our allocated capacity and above our 85% for the sewer policy lease capacity, but we're not at 100% allocated plus leased, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
We are over our, or close to over our allocated. Again, allocated, South Kingston gets some, URI gets some, and we get some. That's the allocated.
Sorry I left that part out.
Then we lease some from URI on anywhere from a yearly basis to a 3-year basis, depending on, I'm not part of those negotiations. And that brings down our 100% capacity to 80, again, it fluctuates because the rainwater goes in, but it's probably around 85%.
Yeah, that's all, that's correct. So, I'm sorry I led you wrong there, Doctor, but that is true.
Well, just for clarification purposes, because we're talking about doubling
Yeah,
the number of
that,
people on the lots.
that exacerbates the situation. Certainly it does. And for everybody here, and I don't know how many people are on YouTube. 4 people in the world.
Yeah.
The sewage treatment plant is not over capacity because URI and South Kingstown are not using up all of theirs.
Okay.
So there's no fear of the sewage treatment plant overflow, just so you know.
But the legal grounds that we're looking at is the fact that doubling the amount of homes in this lot will exasperate our present water and sewer situation.
Yes, and it will go as far, it'll go further than that in the legal standpoint. It'll cause us to be out of compliance with our tri-party agreement with South Kingstown and URI, and the necessity to pay even more money to URI in the leasehold, or to significantly expand the size of the Westmoreland Street sewage treatment plant.
My other question, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm
I
going
was-
to do have some time if you don't
I
mind.
was gonna,
Go ahead.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, added to that, it's not just the capacity of treatment plant, it's the lines, right?
Oh, yeah.
The size
And
of
the
the
pump
lines.
stations, yeah.
You'd have to
all of it.
replace the lines
the
in
infrastructure.
the community to handle the
Yeah, we're talking
increased volume.
serious.
Yeah,
Serious.
and there's also, on the other end of the pipe, the good end of the pipe, where the potable water comes from, you know, we're having some troubles with our sources there. Veolia water has, you know, they attain their water from wells that are west of URI. Those wells have suffered some significant stress over the years. We have had, as you know, almost every summer we've had watering bans. And that's not going to go away. And if we add 47% more housing, that again creates a similar problem.
Well, fire safety and all of that just gets exasperated because,
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Metuxet, those trucks have a hard time getting down the streets as it is, and the garbage trucks. The provision for affordable housing, that would only be in the special permitted, it would not override R10 and R10A? If I have a lot in R10 or
No.
R10A and I say I want to put affordable unit in, it's still prohibited.
It's we're suggesting it be prohibited right now.
Okay.
But, Mr. Chairman, I do want to just walk you through, I realize there's a couple of other odd and end changes in the draft ordinance that you have. So if you were to go to page 2 of the draft ordinance, we did a couple of things, cleanup things that reference ordinance changes that are already there. So for instance, under residential 01, we have single-family detached dwelling less than 5 bedrooms. So everything you see in an underline is an addition. And then we add in a new a new code 011, single-family detached bedroom, detached with 5 or more bedrooms, which just reflects what's already in our ordinance.
So, so on one, you added the asterisks, and I don't see a reference.
No, actually, Mr. Friday, that's a removal of asterisks.
Okay. I didn't
For
see the-
some reason, it shows up
Couldn't
as a
see the
line.
strikeout.
Yes, no, it's a removal of asterisks.
Okay.
And I was probably a removal of asterisks last time, but it shows up like it's a,
Underline.
yes, unfortunately.
So I'm gonna be,
Thank you for that.
I'm gonna be devil's advocate here. So in a R10 or R10A, we're gonna prohibit a two-family dwelling or duplex, but we're gonna, with a special permit, you can have a 5, 6, 7, 8-bedroom house.
Yes,
Okay,
that's right.
all right,
And that's already in the code in
Yeah, I
section
know.
1223.
okay.
So under,
That was part of our bulk regulation activity a couple of years ago.
use code 2, two-family dwelling or duplex, you can see the changes that we were just discussing, R80 and R40. R80 was always special use permit, R40 is a special use permit, R20 right now, it shows as a special use permit, and R10 and R10A show up as prohibited. And then we refer to the new development standard, special use permit standards in section 1224, which Mike just went over. Section, use code 03, multifamily dwelling, structure minimum of 6 dwelling, maximum 6 dwelling units. That, I actually cross out 12.9 because that's for housing for the elderly. So that's added underneath, and use code 033, that was already in the ordinance. This is just pulling it out to make it its own use code. And again, you can see the uses proposed, so R80 and R40, R20 are prohibited, R10 and R10A would be special use permit, and then everywhere else is prohibited. There are standards already that were already in our ordinance under section 12.9. And then if you go to page 3, we remove the two-family duplex from R40, and we make it a special use permit, see section 12.24. It was already in there for R80, so we didn't need to do anything. And then for R20, we removed two-family, the dimensional components, and we put in see section 12.24 for R20. Under multifamily, I added in that 12.9 reference.
Can I just,
Mhm.
question?
Yes.
30-foot height, main structure? Am I on the wrong page? I think I'm on the wrong page.
I'm right now at the top of page 4, where it says R20 residence zone. So so for R20 residence zone, we struck the dimensional components for that. So 30,000 square feet,
Yeah.
200 feet of, right? And then we said see section 12.4 because it's a special use permit. And in the development standards for that special use permit are those requirements.
But Doctor's talking about the height maximum.
Yeah, I
And,
thought 35 was the
you have
number
to-
that we,
You have to recall that we
Yeah.
recently changed this entire table to respond to the requirement for modifications given to us, enabled to us by the General Assembly.
makes it tough to put a pitch on the roof, huh?
Well, if they get modifications, they can go up to 35 feet.
And I so Dr. O'Neill, just so we're clear, that for that R20 residence zone, which would require, or anyone that requires a special use permit, if you look in the standards, it says setbacks, building coverage, height, the same as the single family dwelling, which are those numbers that were recently changed in zoning ordinance change 1118. Okay. Okay, so down to R10 zone, we just struck the two-family duplex completely. And then in multifamily, I added 12.9. And then again for R10A, we struck the two-family duplex dimensionals. And then we go back, so we're on page 5 now, where Mike has already referred to the additional special use permit standards for two-family or duplex dwellings. Yes.
So I think I have a couple edits on page 3.
Sure.
3? Yeah, so it seems like throughout the table, we're referring to it as two-family duplex, except under R80 where we're calling it two-family dwelling. Just seems like we ought to be consistent. And then in the C section 12.24 there, should that be underlined?
I'm sorry, where?
Off of R80, the two-family duplex, C section 12.24, should that be underlined there or not?
No, I
That's
believe,
existing.
Mr. Friday, we did that.
Okay, okay.
I think
So
we
we're
did that
good.
with our last
Okay.
round, and I can try to confirm that, because
No,
I
believe
realized
you.
I had used the form that we had just recently passed, and I had to go through and remove the underlines. Let me just, if you want to
No, that's
continue
good.
discussing, I'll figure that part out. Actually, I think you did it under section 1118.
And I have a suggested edit for page 6, where for affordable, it's restricted for 30 years. I think we ought to consistently go to 99 years on that.
We could. That's what the law allows us to do.
I'm sorry, where were you on that one?
On page 6, where
99, got it.
Yeah.
So if you were a developer, and you're gonna do this, or your someone's gonna do this, what are the implications from going from 30 to 99?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing.
Well,
From a cost vantage point, or from a tax point of view, or what does it do in terms of production?
it doesn't change production, but it remains affordable. It doesn't, so right now, so 20 years ago, we had more affordable units in Narragansett than we do today because.
Just like 2 bill last month?
Yeah. So this,
I understand, but what I'm also trying to say is, I don't know the answer to the question. I've seen it done both ways, 30 and 99. But I've not heard anyone address if we just kind of upped it to 99, what would you think the implications would be for production?
Well, here's the deal, Tom. We're setting some specific standards for the special use permits in R20, R40, or R80. And we're saying, you want to do a two-family house, you got to get a special use permit. Here are our standards. Now that's defendable, and that doesn't require. So now you can't just use a substandard lot of record. If you have a substandard lot of record in R20, R40, or R80, or you have a lot that is less than 100,000, 60,000, or 30,000 square feet in the appropriate zones, and you still want to do that single family, that two-family house, we can waive it. We'll waive it. It doesn't even need a public hearing. That's what the paragraph says. So the authority is in the town staff to just issue the permit when you show us a deed restriction for 99 years. So this is a case of, you've got a certain amount of right and a certain amount of beneficial use of your property. If you want to go beyond that, you can't meet the standards of the special use permit, we can waive it with the deed restriction. Now, if you don't want the deed restriction, you go to the zoning board and request the total variance on it.
I get that, Mike. What you still haven't answered to me is.
I don't think I need to.
Well,
The monetary side of it is not.
You don't have to answer it, but if you're interested in meeting the 10% goal that the town has in trying to figure out what role this might play in it, it would be useful.
Why put rules in place?
Hold on, he has the
Would
floor.
you let me finish? Why is it a worthy question to consider is, does 99 make a difference from 30, is what I'm asking. And what you're answering on the basis of, if you want it, this is what it is. I get that.
Yeah, so, Tom, if I may.
Yeah, you may.
So, the theory behind the 30 is that because it's affordable housing, and if for resale purposes, you would then have to sell it, you know, there's very little appreciation. That if you bring it to 99, then at some point the useful life of the house is going to be impacted, whether that's 30, 40, say at 50 years. And there isn't the value there to fix it up. But as far as, so that's the trade-off. The 30-year trade-off is, you know, you at 30 years, then it becomes unaffordable, then people can put money into it. The 99-year is we don't lose, we're losing more affordable housing because it's rolling off. But as far as production goes, from a developer standpoint, I don't see a difference to them because they're selling, you know, they're coming in, they're selling a market rate unit and an affordable unit, and the developer is out of it, whether the construction happens and it's a 30-year restriction or a 99-year restriction. Your affordable unit is still priced at, say, 120 median income or whatever it is. So the length of the restriction really doesn't affect the value of the affordable unit, and it certainly doesn't affect the value of the non-affordable unit. So production-wise, I mean, it's a policy reason, you know, the town has to balance the 99, you know, maybe 50, 99, 50. It doesn't have to be either,
Right.
It can be 50. But I don't think from a pure developer standpoint, it affects production. Because they need to, they're gonna sell a market rate, if they have a duplex, they're gonna sell a market rate unit at whatever they can sell it, and they're gonna sell an affordable unit at, it doesn't matter. The 30 to 99 doesn't matter as far as what the price that they're gonna get.
Right. And in this case, I'm not sure it makes a difference or not, but in this case, in order for it to be approved, it would have to be owner occupied.
The affordable unit has to be.
It has to be owner occupied, the building has to be
Yeah,
owner occupied.
the affordable unit has to be owner occupied and maintained, because for the monitoring agency
Right.
every year they.
Well, it doesn't have to be owner occupied.
Does it?
Well, it could be, well, it could be
It
low
could be-
rent, you could do it as a rental.
Yeah, you can do
could
it
have
as a
an
rental.
affordable rental unit.
The affordable unit must be a primary residence. That's what it says.
Of the tenant or the owner?
Yeah, the affordable unit. We don't speak
Yeah,
to
so
the
you can
market
have,
rate
you
unit.
can, you can own, yeah, you can rent
Right.
it.
Okay.
So again, Tom, I think more to the point is your question, if I'm misinterpreting it, is are we more likely to get more affordable units if we were less than 99?
Longer or shorter, that's it.
If you're longer or shorter, and does it impact? And, you know, the explanation, I think, is that from builder's perspective, once they build it, it's off to whoever bought it, so. I don't know. We don't, and we don't have to hit 99 or 30, we can do 50.
Right.
That's true. The law says 99 years or any time frame that the board
Deems.
agrees to, but not to be less than 30 years. Pick a name, pick a year. If you think 99 is too much, tell us what you think is appropriate.
Well, I guess, Mr. Chair, this might be a fair time to ask, are you planning to move this time? My sense is,
No.
No, I don't.
there's
I
no need to move it
No.
tonight, we should just kind of put the questions, and if so, if there's some time to look, then, you know, Steve's given an explanation, but there may be some research out there that can answer a question.
Yeah. What are you doing for that?
While we're on it, can I just ask, and again, this is probably being a rookie here, the standards for a text amendment are found in 21.1, and they're different than a map amendment.
So I just want to clarify with you, when you say standards, are you referring to the purposes of zoning? That are referenced in the staff report?
If the proposal would have, no, this is from my old copy of the zoning ordinance, which may have changed.
No, it's the same.
If the proposal would amend the text of the zoning office, of the zoning ordinance, the planning division, the planning board shall consider the following 5 things. If it's a zoning map, you should consider the next 5, the other 5 things. I guess from the purposes of this memo, did we cover that?
I was going to capture it in the motion, but we needed to, it's not in there.
Okay, all right.
What we've done in the past is we've used the the map amendment standards, but we've adjusted them to try to adjust the text amendment stuff. Because the text amendment standards, if you read them, it's hard to say. They're not really good standards because they ask you a judgmental sort of thing. So we can address all of them with no trouble, and we can expand this memo. That's not a problem.
The only reason I raise it, Mike, is from my vantage point, I trust you guys in terms of doing your assignment. If you want to have something that's bulletproof, if you've got something in plain language that says, here's the standards, and you haven't addressed the standards, then the question is whether it's bulletproof or not.
Right.
No, and that's
Well,
what we need to be.
Right.
That's well taken. Let me just put it that way. We can adjust this memo and address the standards of the text amendment and some of the standards of the map amendment. Because we're talking about mapping and zoning in particular, I don't know, to me, the map standards are meatier, to put it in non-professional terms. So, but we can address them all.
Okay.
There'll be some duplication, but we can address them all.
We need to. I think we need to. Hubert?
Yeah, no, we got the points I raised.
Jerry?
Good.
Doc?
So Mark, can I go back to the point to put a pin in, just for 1 second?
What's that?
Can I go back to the point to put a pin in just for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, big picture wise, this is essentially trying to manage unplanned density that has been wrought by the changes that have been made over the course of last year. And there may be areas in town that cannot be defined, but that might be running around with an R80 or an R40 or whatever it is, nomenclature that are in fact potentially very densely dense. And the question is, by relying that I'd like people to kind of think about and research a little bit, is by relying simply on going on the R10, overlooking those neighborhoods where there are small substandard lots of record, many of them, like hundreds of them, at least in one case. And whether or not there can be language that can be narrowly tailored, that can deal with circumstances like that. I don't know if that's possible, Steve, or not. I mean,
In zone R40 and R80.
I think, yeah, there may be ways to legally describe particular
Yeah, I mean,
things.
yeah, ultimately, it's a recommendation from you guys and a policy decision by the town council, where they, I'll call it draw the line, meaning do they prohibit two families in R, do they prohibit them the whole way? Do they keep it as initially drafted in the R10? It's difficult because a special use permit, again, if it's a special use permit, the use is by right. And in my 32 years, to have special use permits are very difficult to deny. people comply. So you end up getting the allowed use is very rarely denied because of the special use criteria. So that's ultimately the policy decision of the balance.
The flip side.
But yeah, so you're asking to my knowledge.
The flip side could be, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm sure you've seen it, I've seen it. There are ways to very specifically circumscribe certain things geographically based on certain characteristics.
Yeah, and that would be more obvious, you know, if you use the time to the next meeting on other specific
Right.
areas.
Right.
Substandard lot is a substandard lot, regardless of where it's at. So how do we address that in all the areas?
Yes. And it's not, it's one thing if it's a substandard lot that was kind of a leftover and everything else was, but if you're dealing with a neighborhood like this one, I'll just use it the last time. Originally developed as hundreds of 20 by 80 lots. Merged, submerged over time, none of which exceed 15,000 right now, almost all of which are under 10,000, would not be addressed by this particular issue.
Right. And because it's by right, it'd be difficult to deny them the special use.
Correct.
Do you want to table this one?
Yeah,
Continue this
yeah, I
before we
don't think
continue?
it's ready for prime time.
No, I don't think so either. And I think some valid points have been brought up. Do we open this to the public, or is this just us?
It's your call.
It's maybe Dennis.
Public have any comments, questions?
Dennis? No?
I have a process question on the next agenda item, if you would.
We haven't got there yet.
I understand, that's what I'm just identifying. When you do, I'm ready.
We'll wake you up.
Well, one question, I want to thank the whole planning board for, you know, the rezoning that happened from the other previous legislation. Obviously, this one potentially fell through the cracks with this one, so now, you know, we're looking at it and it's appreciated. Mike, is there any more from that legislation that, you know, you can think of? I mean, I know there's a lot of work done on it that is similar to this, that could be looked at, you know, in
I'm not sure I understand your question, Mr. Freeman.
Well, I mean, the legislation was able to grant you know, a lot of records at, put good family in an R10 and even lower. So we knew that law came out, now we're addressing it now, and I know a lot of the dimensional regulations were addressed at the, you know, during the last fall. So this one, I don't want to, you know, I guess it fell through the cracks, it wasn't noticed, now, you know, we need it, or you'd like to see it. Is there any other aberrations like this in that new legislation that came out that are kind of, you know, going to put the town at a disadvantage as far as overdevelopment and all that? That you know, I mean, can you look into that just a little bit?
The intent and
Mr. Chairman.
from the very beginning, when we started this, just from the massiveness of what came from the state,
Yeah, I realize.
we've already planned on revisiting on a regular basis.
Okay.
So this was glaring.
Yeah, no. that's what I-
Are there things that we're going to bump into? Possibly. At this point in time, I don't think any of us can tell you, but we are, you know, now that we've gotten the mass out of the way, we're able to look at things better. And we're fortunate in a situation because of the amount of work people did, that we can manage those changes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could give you an answer off the top of my head of things that I've got on my back burner ready to jump on, but I don't have that at the moment.
Thanks.
All right. So I need a motion to continue.
Move to continue.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, so I have, I'm in a little voice room, right?
I'm good. I don't care.
You good?
Not my decision.
5 minutes?
Take 5.
Okay, take 5. Yeah.
The next agenda item that's coming up, the short-term rental. I understand the town council delivered it to the planning board for review and recommendation. Could you just, for public, let us know the steps that you'll be taking? Just big, are there gonna be multiple meetings? Are there gonna be public hearings before you render your recommendations? Just so we can set our own expectations.
If you haven't had a chance to read my memo, then have you, Dennis? My staff memo?
No. Was it
No.
on, was it in
Because-
the agenda? Was it in the agenda?
Well, it is in the packet. We don't have hot links in our agendas.
Right,
like-
so yeah, no, I did not read that. I did read the town council's
Yeah.
recommendations.
Well, then you know that they have a public hearing scheduled. The public hearing is scheduled for March 18th. So this board has to deliver a recommendation before March 18th.
Okay.
The concept of having numerous workshops and that kind of thing is not necessarily available to the planning board. I've reviewed this ordinance, I've made a recommendation, and I will be asking the board to vote on it tonight.
Okay.
So that's the process. Had we been given more time, say if it was scheduled for April or May, then we may have had sufficient time for the planning board to do more open-ended workshops. Maybe the council will want to do workshops and
Okay,
not.
no, you answered my question, Mike, thank you. So you're gonna hopefully move a motion tonight.
Yes, sir.
Understood.
Can we take a break now, Mr. Lynch?
All right, I move for a 5-minute break. All those in favor?
Number 5.
We are live, so thank you very much for your patience. Back from recess. We are going to address staff report addressing draft text amendment, Narragansett Code of Ordinance regulating short-term rentals. This was sent to us by the town council, looking for comment and recommendation, and it's going back to them, and there is actually a hearing already set for this. So this is going back.
Yep.
Staff would like to address this for us?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick overview, and I apologize to the board and to anybody watching on YouTube. I do not have a PowerPoint for this, but you do have my memo in your packet. First of all, as I mentioned, Mr. Lynch, this ordinance is scheduled for hearing by the town council on March 18th. So this is pretty much your one and only chance to review this, because your meeting is on March 19th next month. If the board is so inclined and wants to deliberate on this for a lengthier period of time than we have available tonight, I would suggest we would have to have a special meeting sometime between now and March 19th. But let's see if we can get through it, and if I can answer all of your questions. So, one thing to keep in mind, on the first page of my memo, I point out this is not part of the zoning ordinance. This ordinance that you're going to be reviewing is going to go into Chapter 14 of the Town Code, which regulates business. As such, the board is not restricted to apply the standards of review that we usually apply to zoning ordinance amendments, but we do still have to review it as it relates to the comprehensive plan. Bottom of that first page indicates the chapter titles of the ordinance itself, and I'm going to go through, I'm not going to go through it point by point, but I am going to hit the high points. First, let's start by saying that I will tell you this, looking at my page 2 of my report. This ordinance covers a wide range of areas necessary for working in defendable short-term rental ordinance. Some time ago, Jill and I and a couple of the staff members in Town Hall had started the work on writing a short-term rental ordinance, and we did a great deal of study on that. That led to some more interest by the Town Council, who did some of their own study, and we had a draft ordinance that was subject of a workshop 2 Octobers ago. That wasn't really a well-received ordinance. It had some unanswerable questions or some lacking components. So they went back to the drawing board and they hired a company named Granicus. Granicus is a professional organization that has not only written ordinances for short-term rental regulation, but they actually implement short-term rental regulation for numerous communities around the country as a contractor. And the way they get paid is through a rental registration program. We have a rental registration program in place in Narragansett. Most of the communities that they've worked for never had a rental registration program. And so what they do is they explain to the communities what it will cost to carry out all of the steps in the process of implementing a short-term rental ordinance, and rental registration fee covers their work. So they are paid through the rental registration fees. Granicus was hired by the town council, I'm not sure how many months ago, to help us write the ordinance. They have not been hired to do the implementation. They might, we don't know. But what they did was they have an attorney on staff, and that attorney worked on writing the draft ordinance. Our town solicitor and an outside attorney reviewed that ordinance and fine-tuned it. So we've had basically 3 attorneys write this ordinance. One who works for Granicus and 2 who work for us.
How could you get 3 to agree?
How could you get 3 to agree? It wasn't me.
And it wasn't Steve.
That's how you did it.
Withdraw the comment.
And it wasn't
We're only seeing one version.
So in regard to consistency with the comp plan, I want to note that the regulation of seasonal rentals is referenced in the plan as one of the 4 main formative issues related to housing, and that's referenced out of Chapter 7 of the comp plan. The formative issues came out of, for those of us who were here, they came out of the primary workshops, the 2 main workshops that were instituted by our consultant, Horsley Witten, back in fall of 2012 and winter of 2013. And that led to a 4-year effort to get the plan done in 2016 and approved in 2017. The plan recognizes the positive and negative implications of transient residents in the community. And we note that college students bring a lot of money to the town, as do our summer visitors. But they can also be the source of noise, abuse, overcrowding. The text goes on to note the value of developing incentives to promote year-round rentals. I cite 3 policies here on page 2. These are verbatim from the roadmap of the comprehensive plan. Policy H1.3, ensure that seasonal rentals do not unduly strain public services. Policy H1.4, ensure that rental properties meet local and state housing codes to maintain the health, safety, and welfare of occupants. And policy H4.1, encourage year-round rentals and home ownership to build a stable year-round and diverse population. So it is right for us to be looking at drafting a short-term rental ordinance. We have over 2,500 rental properties in town. I also want to point out, starting at the bottom of page 2 and carrying over to the next page, that there is some recent case law in the state of Rhode Island that I was made aware of and I wanted to share with you, related to a couple of cases in Newport, and they called it, related to tourist and transient, related to, what did they call it in Newport? Not tourist and transient housing. Didn't I put the term there? Guest houses. There it is, on the bottom of page 2. The city of Newport found these 2 property owners in violation of the Newport Code of Ordinances for operating a guest house without proper zoning permits. The owners appealed to Superior Court.
What's the word before house?
Guest.
Oh, guest. I thought you said death. I said, what the heck? What are you talking about? Yes, all right.
That's a good one, Doc.
Mortuary.
It's not huge demand, but we're covering it.
All right, thank you, Michael. Fire
Thank
away.
you, Doc. So guest houses is the term that's used in the Newport Code. I just wanted to point that out. So the owners appealed to Superior Court on the grounds that Newport's code is preempted by Rhode Island General Law 4263.1.14. That's a state law related to registration of tourist and transient housing. That law was put in the books only a few years ago when the General Assembly felt as though short-term rentals, one of the biggest problems with short-term rentals was there was no database. There's no way of keeping track of them, where they were, how they were being managed and maintained. So they put that law on the books, and it requires registration with the state of Rhode Island. The opponents to the Newport, the people who appealed the Newport Code and the violation issued to them, felt as though that violation was in opposition to the state law. The elements of the 2 cases that are relevant to our work is that the Superior Court's finding that the state supremacy, related to state supremacy and registration and transient uses. The court found that the city was not prohibited from regulating short-term rental uses, and that the registration power of the state is not exclusive, meaning that the city of Newport could also require registration. The court's conclusion was that the state does not preempt the city zoning regulation. So we need to be aware of that. There are recent cases about that. We may hear objections to short-term rental regulation, but we have a sound foundation now to rely on, that aspect of it, the registration side of it, will not stand up in court. So, going to the ordinance itself, and I gave you a copy of it, I'm not gonna read the ordinance, what I am gonna do is hit the high points as I show here on page 3. One of the most important elements there is that they define a Narragansett resident, quote unquote, as someone who qualifies for the homestead exemption, which means that you have to live here more than half the year. This is important as Narragansett residents are given priority to apply for a short-term rental permit for 14 days at the outset of the application period. So non-residents, people who don't qualify for the homestead exemption, whether they take it or not, non-residents would not be able to apply during that 14-day period. That gives Narragansett residents a little bit of a leg up. Another very key component is that the rental regulation sets a limit of a minimum of 7 nights. So this was a very lengthy discussion we had, Jill and I and the staff had way back when we were first studying it. What would we consider? Should we put in a limit or should we not? Some communities don't even have a minimum number of nights, so 1 night could be possible. We have found in the town and through the building official's office that there have been a lot of complaints about 1 night and 2 night rentals because people come in, they're just a party. They don't really take good care of the property, they leave it a mess, and they disrupt the neighborhood. So the numbers went back and forth, but this drafter, and we were not part of this, my office was not part of drafting this, decided that 7 nights was the minimum, should be the minimum rental period. I'm not sure how the board feels about that, and maybe you will have some thoughts about it. The next item down is just an exemption thing. They wanted to make sure that hotels, B&Bs, and the whole element of households and student occupied housing is not part of this at all. So they just take that out so that there isn't any complicating arguments to be made or differences of opinion. That particular component just states straight out. We're not regulating, this does not regulate student occupied houses or B&Bs or hotels, etc. Moving down, I'm not going to read them all. G, permitting limits, I found that interesting, and I can't say that I can give you a reason why the permitting limits are listed as they are. They start out for the first year, which would be this coming year, they would limit registration of 1,100 short-term rentals. The next year they would drop that by 100 to 1,000, and the next year they would drop that by 100 to 900. If I can offer any explanation of that, it would be that I believe Granicus has a database of short-term rentals because they monitor something like, and I'm not exaggerating, 45 or 50 hosting platforms. Airbnb being the one that everybody knows about, VRBO. There's another 40 or 45. And they had come up, I think, with a number of around 1,200. This was a few years ago. But there's obviously the potential for duplication. So I'm guessing that the 1,100 is an estimate of what the true number of short-term rentals are. Why they want to reduce them in year 2 and year 3, I'm not sure.
Oh, that was my question.
Yeah.
That was my question.
I got big question marks next to it too.
Good question.
Yeah, like who gets it, right?
Why is there a limit to begin with? I don't understand that.
Actually, a limit.
This is America.
No, a limit on the number of short-term rentals is a very common provision in most of the ordinances that I've read.
Oh, yeah?
Because what it does is it makes predictable the number of non-short-term rentals. And it makes it, it puts a hedge, it puts a barrier in front of the potential for the town to be overrun by short-term rentals. And we know that that short-term rentals have become more prevalent in, say, the last 10 years. So, to what end? To what end? How far can it go? 75% of the town? 90% of the town? As it is right now, 1,100 units would be about a tenth of the number of dwelling units in town. So, I believe that there is good, it's valid. It's a valid provision to incorporate within an ordinance of this type.
I don't get simplistic, but how the heck do you regulate that?
Permitting. It'll
Yeah,
be,
if people are honest, they come in and get a permit.
right.
Yeah. Well,
And if
all
they're
right.
not,
We'll
there
leave
are
it at
violations. Moving down, go to item K, a local representative. This is important. One of the big complaints about short-term rentals is when something goes wrong, you can't find the owner. So anyone who registers a short-term rental will have to identify themselves and provide their contact information if they live nearby, or if they don't live nearby, they have to have a local representative who will work on their behalf. That being the person who would get a phone call for noise complaints or damage to the house.
And we
or
go to
anything.
go to the house. A
Right.
local person would go to the house.
The local person would respond to the police department. Yeah, a phone call would go to the police department would have the name of that local rep. The police would call them and say, you've got to go to the house and do something. Prohibited uses, item M, very important. And I think this is really important because of the issue of, since they put in the 7-night limitation, it's buttressed, but if it didn't have any limitation at all, it would be probably the most important part of this regulation. That you can't have weddings, banquets, bachelor parties, corporate events, these sorts of things that are one-night, one-off sort of activities. And you can't use things like boats and storage sheds as...
Unless you have a 7-day bachelor party.
Okay, never thought of that one, Tom. And temporary structures, and things like tents and tree houses cannot be used as short-term rentals. Moving on to page 4.
I had one on this, and actually, I'm reading my notes as you're going through, you're answering some of the stuff, but, and I know you guys noted it in your recommendations, but why isn't it one-room rental not prohibited? I mean...
Oh, well, I wrote it in the...
I know you did, and I have it in my notes that under prohibited use should be a one-room rental.
In fact, item, well, let me get to that when we get to that, okay? But
okay.
Let's put a pin in it, as Tom would say. I did want to point out that they have to keep records, accurate records, and they have to hold their records for a year. This is in case there's a violation that goes to the whole level of going to municipal court or superior court, and there's going to be prosecution. We want those records. Enforcement. The ordinance defines minor and major violations, sets forth fines for minor violations of $250. Major violations can go up to $1,000. And permit fees are set also. So I pointed out 4 things that I thought needed to be addressed that were not addressed in this. And I'll jump down to item C right now. In section 14-549C, the draft ordinance would allow for individual room rentals. So if you look in the draft ordinance 549C, unfortunately these pages are not numbered. It states, short-term rentals shall be limited to 1 booking per property per day. A booking may consist of the short-term rental of 1 or more bedrooms in the dwelling unit, or the short-term rental of the entire home. I suggest that be stricken. The part about the one or more bedrooms. I guess you could leave the rest of it. I also raised a concern about looking at going from A to D now, that there's no limit on the number of short-term rentals that may be present on a property. I think that there should be, the ordinance would benefit by an addition of an explicit limit of one per site unless located within a legal conforming or non-conforming two-family or multifamily building. This kind of leads to my item B, which is we should expressly prohibit ADUs, accessory dwelling units, to be used as short-term rentals. And the last is that I noticed that there's no violation for renting for a period of less than 7 days. We have that 7-day limit, but we don't have any violation if you rent for 2.
And that should be a major violation, not a minor.
Good point. Then there's also parking on areas other than designated driveways. That's not issued as a violation. Or failure to post information required under section 14-549F. And I suggest that these be added to the list of violations.
Yeah, I thought parking should be, failure to post should be a major. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
I was thinking the same way on that. Okay.
Yep.
Mike, on your,
Yep.
the, not renting, not renting individual rooms.
Yeah.
If you added a requirement, that is owner occupied to section C, would that address your thoughts on that or not? So,
we have within the ordinance, I believe, the allowance for people to rent to boarders.
right,
That's different than a short-term rental.
right.
So, I think we can leave boarders in
The way it
the
is.
regulation.
Okay.
It's defined and it's regulated. But allowing for short-term rentals to be a room in a house where you're not
a resident.
owner occupied turns into potential hotel.
Yeah, or
with no
rooming house.
Rooming house.
Yeah, with no restrictions and no regulatory oversight management.
Yeah.
So in my mind, C should just say short-term rentals should be limited to 1 booking per property per day, and the rest of it should just be stricken.
The other thing that I had noted under issues not addressed is how permits will be given out, especially if they're going to be reduced year by year. Is it going to be a lottery? Is it going to be based on who gets there first? Is it legacy, where if you had it last year, you can have it this year, but we've got 100 less from last year, so if you have no violations from last year, you get priority over people who have had violations.
That's a good point.
You know, because these are going to be coveted at some point in time.
Correct.
When you have 900 of them. So how are you going to reward the people? Let's face it, I mean, this ordinance and typical ordinances is not about the guys who do it right. It's the people who are just, I'm, I don't care, I'm blind. And so if they're doing it right, they should benefit from doing it right. Mm-hmm. And so in the permitting process, if I have no violations, if I've always done everything right, I should go to a head of the line. But if there's 4,000 people trying to get these, and there's only 900, how do we do this?
The only direction we have has to do with that 14-day window. That Narragansett residents who qualify for homestead exemption have 14 days to get their applications in. But it doesn't answer your issue.
So
doesn't address your issue.
So you get your application in on 15 minutes before I did.
Yeah.
And you have all these violations. I have none.
Right.
But the cutoff was at your spot. So
Right,
you get it and I don't.
right.
Where's the equity of rewarding people who are doing things right? And most people want to do things right. There should be some equity provision for that. Because face it, you want the people who do it right to have the permit.
Right. Yeah, I got it. That's a good question to raise. We could add that to the list of issues not addressed.
So Mike, this is envisions a date certain by which everyone has to rent it. It's not going to be on a rolling basis.
Say again?
Permits are not going to be issued on an annual, they're going to be issued annually
Yes.
as of a specific date.
Yes.
It's not going to be taken on a rolling basis.
No.
There's no evergreen.
Nope. And they expire every year, and you have to reapply every year. I don't really have a problem with that.
No,
From reasons.
I'm just, so, but right now, that date is not that date in terms of when the application is.
August 31st.
That's what it's going to be.
Yep.
So
So
they're
I
gonna
guess
run
from August
September-
15th to
so
August
run-
31st
It's gonna
is
run
the
from
window.
Okay, so the year's going to run basically the same as the rental registration right now.
Yeah.
And there'll be provisions as to where you get the application, where you submit it, et cetera, so forth. I didn't see any of that.
I don't think it has to be that specific.
That, I don't know if that needs to be in the
It
ordinance.
doesn't need to be in the ordinance,
Right,
I agree,
right.
Yeah.
but they need to address it.
Right.
And I've seen too many things get implemented with nothing behind it.
Well, you know that we have a rental registration program.
Yeah.
And it's active. It works out of the building inspection's office. I assume that it's going to work out of the building inspection's office, and the rental registration program is going to be adjusted accordingly. Now, I'm just assuming. I don't have any validation of that at the moment.
You haven't discussed that with that person, another job?
I haven't actually, well, I don't know that they've spoken to the building official yet about it.
Surprise.
So somebody could be registered with the state, but not registered with the town, and they wouldn't have, and they couldn't rent. Is that right?
Right. That's what I read the Newport court case to.
That was what the court's decision
Well,
was.
I'm just thinking it through. So, and Mike, how many?
I haven't heard Steve yell at me yet, so I guess I'm not
How
I'm
many?
not out of line yet.
How many units are registered on the rental registry right now? How many?
Rental registry is over 2,600 at the moment.
And as of this afternoon, there are about 1,070 short-term rentals on the state list for Narragansett.
Okay, didn't know that. Well, maybe that's where they came up with the 1,100.
Sounds like, yeah, you can track that number pretty easily.
And the Granicus figures that we got so many years ago are very close to what you just mentioned, so that's got to be a good estimate.
So I was going to add another suggestion is for the application requirements, evidence that they have state registration. So that would do two things. It would
I think they're required
make
to.
sure they know that they have to be registered with the state, and the state registration deals with all the tax collection. And then
I think that's, I don't think we have to say it because it's required by the state law.
But couldn't you have it for your application process, evidence that they've registered with the state? That way-
The state,
Just a qualifier.
the state goes on a rolling basis. My impression is the state's registration's on a rolling basis. It's possible that somebody's permit would expire. At the time, with the state, that would expire during a period of time.
During the period, yeah.
Period of time of the.
Well, virtually all of them will, unless
Well, the state's.
the very few that coincide with us.
I think the state's permit's a 2-year permit. I think
Okay.
it's registration for 2 years.
But require evidence of state registration. Yep, makes sense.
Is there, I didn't see it, is there an effective date here?
Yeah, that was on my list of things. I didn't see it either.
I think it was going to be,
I
no,
just-
they didn't put it in.
They just said the number of permits for 2024.
It would be, I believe it would become effective for this rental season and start in August.
All right, so,
It has a provision grandfathering for people that have leases before.
Yeah, existing leases can
Does
carry,
that provision?
existing leases can carry through the termination, yeah.
And the first limits on permits is 2024 at 1,100, so I'm presuming they're gonna enact it this year.
Oh, they want to enact.
Oh, I know. Any other questions?
They're gonna be re-inspected annually?
No.
How's that gonna work?
No, if you read it closely, it says they will be scheduled for inspection. Inspections are going to happen dependent upon the resources the town has available to it. We only have 2 building inspectors, we have 1 fire marshal. The question of whether or not a third party, such as a Granicus, could be hired to do that is still up in the air, because you have to be a certified state inspector in both of those realms to be able to do an inspection. So they will be scheduled, and they're anticipating they would be inspected within a period of a couple of years. I mean, it's going to take that long to get through 1,000 or so inspections. But Granicus or some other company, if we were to hire a company to help us implement, could assist by identifying properties that look as though they might be non-conforming, whether it's minimum housing violations or other things, and serve as the eyes and ears of the town to help the fire marshal, the building inspector, to identify which places they need to inspect.
Priorities.
So we have the fees in place. So, I just want to answer the council, the board's question. I knew I saw a date someplace. Permitting limits, section 14-545. Total number of short-term rental permits within the town of Narragansett shall be set by the council. Limitations on the total number of permits set by the town council shall first go into effect on September 1, 2024.
Yeah, there you go.
And that first year is 1,100 permits.
Right. Yep.
Like in terms of the, just bear with me for a second here. Inspections, permitting limits, H says application information. Are you gonna, it simply says acknowledgement of meeting fire and safety, life safety requirements. Are you gonna, is that acknowledgement gonna take the form of a certification or what?
That's H out of my memo.
Yeah, it's out of your memo.
Yeah. Try to find that. Because I tried to pare it down so that it'd be easier to read. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't find the reference on that.
Okay, let me see if I got it. On page 3.
You know, just trying to find where
Key
it is.
criteria, letter A, under 4H, application information. Acknowledgement of meeting fire, about third line down. Acknowledgement of meeting fire and safety life requirements. So when I file an application, I've got to acknowledge that. What form does that acknowledgement take? Because I take the form of.
Yeah, that's me, that's my terminology. I was trying to synthesize the thoughts here. And it
No, I
has,
get it. I think you need more than just a box though. I think you need some kind of a certification, or something like that.
Says here under 14-548, permit insurance expiration renewal. No, that was insurance
Oh,
expiration.
here it
I
is,
thought I
right.
saw it someplace.
It's on the bottom of, it's on the bottom of the third or fourth page of the ordinance, under 14-546 application. It's item A7. And it says acknowledge and certify information contained in the application. And then further on down, I believe it speaks to the space meets or exceeds fire and life safety. That's top of the next page.
It also says.
I synthesized the thoughts.
It also says on B on that, the unit shall be inspected
Yep.
by the fire marshal and building official initially upon application to ascertain compliance of all provisions of the ordinance.
Yep.
So it has to be inspected before.
But if you have to reapply annually.
That's right.
And you have to provide on your application information about fire and life safety. What certificate, you're not gonna be re-inspected for some period of time.
Right.
Based on what we just said. So how are you going to represent, in fact, that you met that requirement? That's all I'm saying. You know, how strong do you want that to be?
Yeah.
Well, if it says on application and you have to apply each year, it infers that you're gonna get inspected each year. Now, whether or not we have the manpower to actually do that is,
Yeah, well, I think we heard tonight we're not gonna get inspected. Right, so.
Well, it depends on what kind of resources we have
If
available.
Granicus can do something, maybe. So the issue of treating residents and non-residents differently, that's been looked at, Steve? That's not a problem?
So you're gonna get I was not part of any of those discussions.
Okay.
But it has been, all that has been vetted more by both Mark and the Sister Law and Granicus. So,
Okay.
but you certainly, I mean, in other jurisdictions, as far as not residents and non-residents have been treated differently.
So in the situation where you have the potential for more than one STR to be on a property, it happens two ways, right? We can have a multifamily apartment building that has several, there's one on Ocean Road that is currently on the list that has 4 units or 6 units on the registry right now. So that's one way it can happen.
Right.
And there is another way it can happen in terms of someone owns a piece of property, has big house, garage with a unit over the top of the garage and an outbuilding that has 3, so in that scenario, is this saying I can only rent one of those as a short-term rental?
I didn't see it. That was a question I raised.
well, then one of our recommendations is to exclude all ancillary buildings. So that would exclude the outbuilding and over the garage, et cetera.
I'm looking at language in Mike's memo, maybe, issues not addressed.
Yeah.
Says the ordinance may benefit by addition of explicit limit of 1 per site unless located within a legally conforming or non-conforming 2-family or multi-family unit building. So I take that to mean in the first instance, large multi-family apartment building on Ocean Road has 3 units. Excuse me, has 6 units that are on the registry. They're gonna be able to do all of them?
Maybe.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking us to give you the direction on?
No,
Okay.
that's not the issue. If it's illegal, what I said in my memo is if it's a legal multifamily development, it's possible that the entire building could be short-term rentals.
What it says here is it may benefit by the addition of an explicit limit of 1 per site. That's why I'm confused. Under 5A.
Unless located within a legal conforming or non-conforming 2-family or multifamily building.
Okay, all right, fine.
It's one
I'm
sentence.
sorry. I am confused.
At first I wanted to say, maybe we should just say one per site, but then I think of multifamily structures. And if people can get, if the owner can register more than one of their units in their building, I guess it's okay, you know? I mean, unless the town council wants to change that. They could set it as one per site.
I have a question on fines.
Yeah.
So fines escalate.
Right.
They put an escalation thing, which is good.
Yep.
So my question, because it doesn't explicitly say this, that the escalation of the fines in the course of the year, based on the way it's worded, would lead me to believe that the fines run with the property, not with the tenant that's in the building at the time of the fines.
Yeah, right.
But it doesn't explicitly say that.
Gotta look at
It says
no,
first-
it says under 14,551, 2 pages before that, the host shall be responsible and jointly or severally liable for compliance at all times. Violations of this ordinance shall be enforceable through issuance of a citation and summons by the building official. Although it doesn't say to the owner.
Yeah, and when you look at the schedule, it says first offense in a permit year is $250, second offense is $500, third and subsequents are $1,000, which and then triggers that they're all major violations. Minor violations are $1,000, in addition to immediate revocation of short-term rental lease. So based on that, I'm presuming that the fines run with the property, but again, it doesn't say that.
All, it seems as though all of these
are in the permitted year.
Violations are, they seem to be associated with the owner.
Okay.
But it does raise a question, where is the, oh, failure to resolve a noise complaint.
Yeah.
That's item 2 under
Yeah, it's
minor.
detailed back.
But think of that, think of the way it's stated, failure to resolve a noise complaint.
Right.
Again, that's on the property owner, not on the tenant.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would say all the fines are on the property
cumulative.
owner, and they're on the property owner.
Okay.
Along that line, 375, but I'm a simple guy. $375 application.
Yeah.
1,000 people apply. Am I missing something? We're gonna have a tough time hiring somebody? Half the doctors in Rhode Island would apply. Am I missing something?
Wait, what do you mean?
He's saying it's gonna generate enough revenue to hire staff.
Good.
Oh.
If you have
We
1,000 people.
Yeah, oh,
paying
I think,
$375, it's,
I think it's,
I'm a humble country doctor, that's a lot of money.
yeah. I believe what the thought of this is, the thought behind this is that we would hire a contractor to basically handle the entire program. And there are 6.
$375,000?
Well, they don't have to get all the money. No, but, no. I hope.
Did you see the panic on his? They don't have to go.
No, let me tell you what I things that are not in this ordinance. Granicus provided us a quote. This was 3 years ago. A quote for what they would charge us to do 6 different things, and I can't remember them all. One was to handle the rental registration program. Well, we have staff in place for that. But others were to monitor the platforms, the 45, 50 hosting platforms that are out there, monitor the individual sites, actually drive by, check out the sites, and then report back to the town. Send out letters of notification if someone is in violation. That they would send out letters on behalf of the town. They would follow up on those letters. And the first letter would be a friendly reminder. You might have forgotten to do this or do that. but then it could turn into a minor or a major violation if not solved. So there were 6 different tasks they could do for the town. When you add up the cost per unit of each of those tasks, it came out to under $100. So if we have 1,100 of these and just use 100, you know, it'd be $111,000. Well, the rest of the money goes into the town coffers, pays for our rental registration staff person who we have in the building inspections department. And it might be enough to hire assistant fire marshals, assistant building inspectors, etc. So these numbers were generated not by me, and I can't tell you how they're anticipated to be
No,
spent.
I don't think those numbers are high. We've talked about this with the, you know, the student rentals and all that stuff. We don't have enough personnel to go around and see they got 9 cars in front of the house every day.
Yeah.
You know,
So this is part of it, that we would be hiring, if we're not hiring Granicus or some company like them to do these 6 tasks, which if I thought we were going to have this conversation, I'd have brought in the little outline.
yeah.
Then we would be hiring town staff, full-time employees. But I do believe that we know that this is going to require staff. But if it pays for itself, then it's not coming out of tax dollars.
Say, looking at those numbers, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not coming out of the taxpayers.
In looking at the numbers, and I'm always trying to look to equity, we have flat fee fines. And if I've got a 5-bedroom unit and I'm renting that out, these fines are a joke. If I've got a 1-bedroom efficiency, that's a, you know, part of my, it's a duplex, and I'm, you know, just trying to substitute. These are substantial.
Good point.
I don't know the answer. Can you do it on a percentage basis of the rental or what? But it just, on an equity basis, I just think that, but again, I'm always trying to look at the equity part of this.
I think they're too light.
I think they're extremely light.
And, you know, if you have a 1-bedroom house or if you have a 6-bedroom house, if it's an offense, it's an offense. I just think $250 is nothing. You know, they're getting $9,000 a week. Some of the house across the street is $9,000 a week.
You get
I'll
an
take
idea?
a chance of getting caught. That's $250.
Yeah, I know.
I just don't think it's enough. I don't know what the right number is, but I think it
I don't
has to sting a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I when I read these, I kind of laughed at the fines.
Yeah, me too. I didn't laugh, but
Who created the fines?
People who drafted it, we did not, my staff did not have any input to that.
Just one more quick one, 2 more quick ones, Mike. One is the definition of host.
Yeah,
it's the property owner, no?
that's the property owner.
Yeah, but if the, I guess if the host has rented the unit to a tenant for a long period, let's say he's got a year-round tenant. The tenant in turn is the person who is renting, basically sub-renting through an Airbnb. Does that cover that?
You're talking about, well, yeah, it does in a sense because the owner has to register the short-term rental.
But there's the word host here, that's a defined term, that says an owner of a dwelling unit who rents the dwelling unit for transient occupancy as a short-term rental.
Yeah.
So if I'm renting it, I don't own it. It
That's
still
my
goes
point.
back on the owner, and it should.
Correct.
Okay. So the owner has no knowledge, the owner may or may not have knowledge that the person is renting. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
Again,
they'd be violating the entire ordinance and virtually
Probably
every
violating the lease,
element.
probably
Right.
violating the lease,
Right.
if this lease is for
Yeah,
business.
and it goes back to, you know, rewarding the people that do it right. And let's face it, I mean, laws are more for, you know, people that follow the laws than the people that don't.
Yeah, I mean, there would be numerous reasons, numerous violations issued in that circumstance, and the individual tenant who's subletting would be brought to municipal court. I'm not sure what we had there.
So one of the things you should note in your little list of not resolved is the reality of the fines.
Yep, you wrote it down.
Anybody have any other questions or comments?
Just one.
Go ahead.
I think in the second paragraph, one thing I think could help strengthen the note that's going to the council that you drafted is if you added a sentence that is a bit more explicit than saying that the hosting platforms may have contributed to recent growth in the industry. You simply put a number on how many short-term rentals there are in the community right now. Makes clear the reason why you need
Yeah, I think that's the,
makes clear the reason why you need to have things
Yeah.
regulated here.
And you said it's 1107 or 1170?
well, that's with the state, right?
That's how many are registered at the state right now.
And what was that number again?
1070.
10 cents.
I think it was 1070 is what I think it
Yeah.
said.
Okay. So where was it? Oh, my second paragraph, page 1?
Yep. Mr. Chair, I mean, on balance, I think this is an appropriate ordinance. I think it takes into account how the community has basically been influenced by the influx of short-term rentals. I think it's clear that there's a need to do something. I think this ordinance, as it's proposed, generally with the things that we've spoken about tonight, makes sense. And I'd certainly be in favor of moving this on to approve the ordinance.
Rupert?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make two comments. One is to thank Mike for his very thorough analysis in his memo. I thought it was very detailed, a lot of good information. And then the other is Jerry and I are members of a subcommittee with the affordable housing folks, and the Affordable Housing Collaborative has been working with a contractor, Crane Associates, and the report's not finalized yet, but there's discussion in there as one of the recommendations, strongly recommending that the town do something about regulating short-term rentals. So this is going toward implementing.
His report will be presented to the town council on March 4th
That's
by
great.
him.
That's great. So then they'll know that at the time they're documents.
Yep, yep.
Jerry?
I'm good.
Doctor? Anybody from the public have any comments, questions? Sir?
Forward.
Yeah, he's got to come forward and
They moved the podium on you, Dennis.
trying to make it work,
I'm
man.
gonna lean on, so.
Dennis, can you do us a favor and just identify yourself to the public?
Sure, Dennis Lynch, 22 Central Street, Narragansett. So very supportive of initial regulation for short-term rentals. The numbers the gentleman referenced in terms of the state database, that's the most current. The Providence Journal had an article about 4 months ago that listed all of the cities and towns with short-term rental registrations. And out of the 39 towns and cities, Narragansett was #1, and it was double the next, which was Newport. And at the time, it was about 920. That 920 represented 21% of all of the short-term rentals in the state. So with a population of 15,000 in a state of 1 million, you can tell that we are very saturated with this. So the regulations are long overdue. I'm hopeful that Granicus has followed best practices, and hopefully someone can sort of confirm that none of these are out of the ordinary from what other towns and cities have used. I've actually just heard recently about the declining cap, and it may be that the town considers what they want for a cap, and that is the number that's established at the point of implementation. I can't quite unravel how you actually reduce people each year. You were talking about some of the methodology and lotteries and the uncertainty of I'm in it
the business this year and not in it next year, and all of the uncertainty connected to that feels like a sort of unwieldy mechanics that you don't have to go through if you're trying to get to a number. You know, state what the number is. So that's the only commentary I have, but the fact that we're finally going to inspect places that are rented, hopefully someday we can inspect all of the other places that are rented in town, both year-round and with students. It's terrific that we're going to have the necessary financial support to put it in place. So I had, the last draft I read was, you know, comprehensive in hitting all of the targets. We are way late in getting regulation in place, given the population of short-term rentals that we have in town. So I applaud you guys addressing it so quickly and hopefully helping the town council with its final enactment of this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay. So I need a motion to send this forward to the town council with the stipulations that or the suggestions that we've included that staff has recorded throughout the meeting. So I have somebody that would like to.
If you recorded what he just said, so
Can't do it that way. Somebody's got to make a motion.
I make a motion that we send the ordinance for amending Chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances, Town of Narragansett entitled Businesses, entitled Rental Dwellings, sent to the Town Council with a recommendation for approval, incorporating the staff's background and findings and recommendations as part of that recommendation, along with the additional recommendations that we discussed during our deliberation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. Okay.
Number 8.
Final piece of business. All right. We have mixed use zoning regulations presentation by work group. Members and staff draft ordinance provided by Affordable Housing Trust Collaborative. That is number 8 on your lineup.
Let me, if I may, Mr. Chairman, give a little introduction to this.
Please.
This is something that is not scheduled for hearing as yet, but it is somewhat of a labor of love that has been carried forward from the Affordable Housing Collaborative and the work group that incorporates Jerry and Rupert and 2 of those members of that board, along with myself and the staff. We've been wanting to draft a mixed-use ordinance for over 14 years. I drafted one back when I had much less gray hair, and I was very early on in my career here, and wrote it for the council to consider, which they did, and then didn't take any action on it. So that was one of 4 ordinances, affordable housing ordinances, that we brought to the town council in 2008. One of them was intended to allow for splitting of non-conforming lots to allow for affordable housing on legal non-conforming lots, or splitting oversized lots to allow for affordable housing. Another one was a village zone, particularly projected for Boone Street, accessory dwelling unit ordinance, and a mixed-use ordinance. So we, an inclusionary zoning ordinance, excuse me. So mixed use was proposed but never really got anywhere. The Affordable Housing Collaborative, to their credit, wanted to address this, even though it's a bigger issue than just affordable housing. It kind of responds to the general housing need in the state of Rhode Island, as Mr. Shikarchi purports to be doing with legislation. But we think we can address it in a very pragmatic manner in the town of Narragansett by drafting an ordinance such as this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a little overview of the ordinance, what we put in for purpose and definitions and applicability. Rupert and Jerry are going to help by pointing out some of the key points of the draft ordinance that you have in front of you. This is for discussion and is not anywhere near ready for action. But just so you know, we wanted to, we put in the ordinance, as you can see in your packet, 10 different purposes of mixed-use zoning. But I selected out items 7 and 8 because I thought they best reflected what we're trying to do, which is to include dwelling units that provide long-term housing, that is housing for low or moderate income households. Also to encourage development of residential uses, including those that meet the needs of the community, as expressed in the Narragansett Comprehensive Plan. I won't get into all the detail. Applicability, this ordinance would be applicable in the BB, General Business Zone. So as you know, BB doesn't allow residential development. We'd be changing it. And what we'd be saying is that in a mixed-use development, according to standards that we're going to go over shortly, residential use could be allowed in a BB zone. So what we generated in order to kind of carry this idea forward is two different levels of development. One is a mixed-use land development, which is a land development. It's something that is fairly large. It means the use of a lot or lots of record in a BB zone for coordinated development of more than one building and including not less than 3 residential dwelling units and creating a mix of residential and commercial uses. A mixed-use project, by contrast, would be a single site development and more often than not a redevelopment or an adaptive reuse. So it means the development or redevelopment of a single parcel of land supporting one mixed-use building with at least one commercial use and one or more residential uses. So it's kind of like the small and the large. Mixed-use land development could be 25 acres. I mean, it could be a whole new neighborhood. Not that we have that much land in town that's available, but it could be that big. And a mixed-use project is one lot at a time.
May I ask you, you got 3, no less than 3 residential dwelling units to create this mix? Why 3? You may have a small.
Well, it's a land development, so.
2, 1, I mean.
Well,
why
we're
pick a
figuring
number?
that.
Why don't you just leave a number out?
Because we wanted to make certain that a lane development was, if it's going to be a big lane development in a commercial zone, it has to have at least 3 residential
If it's going to be
units.
big, or if it's small, then you can't do this.
Then it might be a mixed-use project.
Yes, that's correct. It might be a mix where you
You
can
do
Trying
do
to-
1 over 1,
Okay. Do it under another, okay.
which is the second one.
Okay.
So I was going to turn it over to Rupert or Jerry right here. Who is going to? What do you guys want to do?
We haven't rehearsed this at all, but.
No, I haven't.
Jerry was gonna give a description of a kind of project under each one, so.
Yeah, I get the 25 words or less.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask everybody to kind of do the Reader's Digest version before we have
that's the
people
plan.
falling asleep
Yeah, that's the
where they're
plan.
sitting.
That mixed-use land development, I mean, big projects, an example would be Salt Pond Plaza, I would imagine. I can envision another full story on that whole back end that's never used. The apartments would face the bay. I mean, they're not nobody's gonna do anything unless we step forward and make the changes. And the landowners, the commercial landowners will catch up, the developers will catch up when they see that they have that opportunity. And then in the same token, on the north end, you know, or throughout the town, I just envision any strip plazas now going up with residents on the second floor. You know, like, you take an example where Melgy's is, if that were to be built today, I'm certain it would be 2 stories with apartments upstairs. They'd have the best views in town. So that's what we're after. If you have specific questions.
So key points about the mixed-use developments. Planning board's going to be doing the review under the regulations for minor or major land development or development plan review. And the planning board will also have the authority to grant special use permits and variances. And then there's some standards, and one of the key ones is no uses are not permitted that generate unreasonably high traffic volumes, visually objectionable, or not consistent with the desired village character of mixed-use development. So those are sort of the performance standards. Then we have the table of uses that has been modified, the DB table that's been modified for mixed-use development. So we have that 2 places, one for the mixed-use development and then a second table for the mixed-use projects. And Jerry, you want to talk about a mixed-use project idea?
I think I pretty much covered that, right?
Well,
mixed use.
Within a single building. So
within a single building, an example of that is what we all grew up with, what I grew up with, which we could have a butcher downstairs and he lives upstairs of the space. And I could see that happening in the north end of the town the most, but definitely in the pier area. And I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Any provisions or incentives for affordable units in this?
It's not. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the density, when you get after the second table of uses, there's a discussion of density, sort of how much square feet you need for a residence, and there's incentives if they're affordable units, so that you get to use higher gross area floor area. If you have higher percentage of affordable units, you get more floor area.
Can I have
Yeah,
more
I've got those statistics up on the wall there.
Yep, and Rupert, so you might want to relay to your Affordable Housing Collaborative and all the advocates for that this is only possible if they keep floor area ratio as and I'm totally serious, as an allowable
That's true.
Measurement, because otherwise the town is not enabled to show the ratio. It's not just for big and little houses. Again, in Cranston, we use it for mixed-use development, commercial, residential, retail, office. And if towns can't regulate FAR, then we would not have the ability to do the 23 on page 23, number D.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very important that floor area ratio stays in the ordinance.
We should have had you with us at the hearing last week.
Sorry. Again,
Mike did a very good job.
Yeah, no, but it's frankly, it's not just, there's a lot of cities and towns that regulate floor area ratio with mixed use. That's really what it's used for in a lot of places, so be nice to keep that.
The floor area ratio is used in commercial areas in Bristol that are adjacent to residential areas. It's used in Cranston to regulate mixed-use development. It's used in Westerly and East Greenwich, I think, for residential. So floor area ratio has, tremendous, potential. But back to the mixed-use zoning, the density allowances, as you can see, is much higher than, well, it's not, it just tells you, how much land area you need for dwellings that are small, medium, and large size. And those numbers there are open for discussion. I think maybe they could even come down a bit to 2,000, 4,000, and 6,000. The incentives, as Rupert inferred, you can get added incentives for increasing by 75% if 75% of your residential units are reserved for low-mount housing. So the density can go way up. And the commercial use also can be increased. In that case, we talked about commercial uses being allowable for an increase if they have open spaces conserved for parks or agriculture. That would be more than likely only in a land development, not in an individual single site project. Then a lot of what what we're showing you here was gleaned from looking at other ordinances. We looked at Middletown and Westerly primarily. I didn't get a chance to look at Warwick's ordinance, but we got some good ideas from those two communities. So this is what it is. I'm not going to go into the time. I don't want to get into any more detail than that. We have design standards also.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The design standards, sort of site design to create a village-style development, parking standards, and then additional requirements. And Doc, you'll be glad to know there's height standards in there.
So what is the staff and what is your committee looking for us to do in the next step?
Well, I think what they want you to do, they're pretty much done with it. The Affordable Housing Collaborative voted to send this ordinance to you folks in hopes that you will fine tune it and send it to the town council. There's no timeline on it. We don't have anything in front of the council yet. So we can come back to this next month with a little more detail. Rupert, Jerry, and I have been talking about ways to make this less bulky by taking the table, the big lengthy table, right out and using our space more efficiently. So a reformatting of that table is something I'm going to be working on. Hopefully have something for these guys to review, and then we can all report back to you in a month. But it might not be done then. I mean, it could take another month.
But the Affordable Housing Collaborative has been working on this for a couple of years, and they're really anxious to get it.
And we'd like to respect them
They're
and
really,
give this our best
really
attention.
anxious. And they've been working, Michael heading it, it's been 3 years now, right? Since we started up again in earnest.
And really, we thought it was going to happen this summer, and then we got the package from the legislature, and this got derailed. So.
Yeah. There was that.
Why not move to continue it and you have a month to fine tune it and then let's move on.
Let's move on.
I mean, if these people have been working on this for a couple of years, let's move it off the dock.
I don't want to speak for Rupert, but I think we're happy to work on it over the next month to get it ready for affordable housing.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, as Mike pointed out, I think the area that, if you have thoughts on the density, the 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 square feet.
Yeah, I thought that I had made a note, and I actually have the same numbers you had.
It's
2, 3, and 5.
2, 3, and 5, because it's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
All right, can I have a motion to
continue
to the next meeting?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Seconded?
I did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a unanimous decision to continue this. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Yes.
On the agenda, we have an executive session minute.
Yes, I saw that.
However,
I intentionally didn't say anything because
Well, I believe there needs to be a motion to continue into the next meeting.
Yeah, good point.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
did we need to?
I have some business on the January 17th, 2024 executive session minutes. I need a motion to continue
That's
that
what
to the next meeting.
Continue.
I intentionally didn't say anything about it because I needed to make sure we handled it properly. So if I can have a motion to continue,
Motion to continue.
seconded,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, so we'll continue that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know nobody wants to stay any longer. There are there's a half dozen new bills pending in the House and the Senate. I'm not gonna give you, all I can tell you is there's more surprises coming.
And that's no surprise.
We like
So,
surprises.
you want to give us some of the most urgent ones next month? Can they wait that long?
I mean, accessory dwelling units is definitely happening.
Yeah, let me just give you a one-liner for each one.
Reader's Digest, yes.
The accessory dwelling unit bill has been submitted by the House leadership. It is the same as last year. We are luckily aware that the Senate has a different bill pending that would be much more favorable to the communities, and we're hoping that there will be a favorable outcome to that.
And a lot of credit for that goes to the planners working with AARP to develop a really good bill.
And Senator Goode from
Senator
Johnson.
Goode, yep.
Senate Bill 2017, this is something that's interesting, that the low mod income formula would include non-income restricted multifamily dwellings to count in the affordable housing, in our affordable housing count. So what that means is if we were to have an apartment building built and the applicant said, I'll make 50% of them affordable. If you meet a particular milestone point, the entire building could be counted instead of just the affordable units. So that's pending. We're not sure what's going to happen there. There's also a bill pending to include voucher rentals in the LMI count. Voucher rentals are people who have HUD Section 8 vouchers. Vouchers are portable. We've been told since 2004 you can't count your vouchers because they could go to some other community. We have over 160 vouchers in Narragansett. If this bill passes, we'll be able to count all of them. There's a bill pending that we're not favorable to that would redefine household, that would allow, instead of having this, you can limit the number of people in the household to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It would say that you have to allow for 1 person per bedroom up to a max of 5. So if you have a 6-bedroom house, you can have 5 people. It's a mess. There's another one that was on town council's agenda last night. They are sending a resolution to the General Assembly opposing Bill 7324, which would remove FAR from local zoning ordinances completely.
Right.
And then there's one that I just received that I haven't read, Senate 2408. It amends several sections of the Zoning Enabling Act to quote-unquote preserve neighborhood character and promote smart growth. It's about a 30-page bill. I'm sure there are some surprises in it,
Well,
and I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, I don't think that one has any legs, but.
All right, thank you.
That's what we got.
Anything else for staff, Jill?
No.
Steve?
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
So it's non-debatable, Joe.
God bless
All those in
America.
favor?
Yes.
It is unanimous.
I don't know about you.